Chapter 21. Check out Court 7, Onyx vs. Dragonite. The type matchup's a little lopsided, but it should still be worth watching. Too bad it isn't free. Who'd pay to see the baby cup? Well, at least Court 7 has a clear view. A cluster of spectators behind the players' benches leaned forward, their conversation centering on the upcoming battle at Court 7. Owen's eyes were fixed there too, though a crooked smile played at his lips. The commentator's setup was painfully obvious. First, build up the opponent's Onyx, and then have Dragonite smash through it. A cheap trick to make Dragonite look all the more heroic. "Teng Teng," he called softly. The vine snake coiled around his arm, Teng Teng, shifted and blinked awake, its usually bored expression suddenly alert. Of all Owen's Pokémon, even the fiery fire pheasant had failed to spark that level of interest. But this Dragonite? Now that was a contender worth noticing. "Don't worry," Owen murmured as he stroked Teng Teng's head. "We'll meet that dragon soon enough." He grinned, genuinely curious to see what this powerhouse Dragonite could do. Owen stared at the holographic status screen floating before him, absorbing every detail. Creature, Elf Dragon. Gender male. Special trait water storage rarity purple. Individual values, HP 29, Attack 20, Defense 19, Def 21, Speed, 18 level 19 skills. Call, Water Gun, Sing, White Mist, Life Drop, Ice Gravel, Ice Beam. Description: a dragon that seals away its own power through painful restraint. Having held back for so long, it risks a violent, uncontrolled outburst the moment it breaks free. Intimacy 0, unknown to you. Suppression meter 0, on the brink of collapse. Purple rarity, and those individual values, especially that HP stat. This dragon should have shattered the elite barrier long ago, but instead, it's been choking back its power. Owen felt a pang of guilt. Forcing a creature to suppress its natural evolution is cruel. Prolonged restraint doesn't just cause agony, it can permanently stunt growth. If this dragon had been free to evolve normally before entering the game, Owen knew he would have walked away rather than subject it to any more harm. He tapped the display thoughtfully. There had to be a way to help it safely release its pent-up energy before its suppression meter bottomed out. Battle Arena number 7 erupted into action the moment the bell rang, and it was over almost before it began. Owen, the stocky boy munching on potato chips, barely lifted his eyes. "Dragonite, Water Gun," he ordered. In response, Dragonite unleashed a powerful jet of water that screamed across the confined arena. Onyx writhed defensively. There was no room to dig underground in these tight quarters, and dig was banned anyway, so it was pinned across the surface. Its trainer shouted, "Angle your body, take it on the side." But wave after wave of water slammed into Onyx with relentless force. The steel serpent's segmented plates began to buckle. Its crimson eyes flickered and dimmed under the pressure. Fearing a one-hit knockout, Onyx's trainer called out desperately, "Onyx, rock throw!" With a thunderous roar, Onyx lifted its head and charged its rocky core. Then it spat a barrage of jagged boulders at Dragonite. The stones pelted the dragon's wings and torso, but Dragonite barely faltered. Its eyes narrowed, the muscles around its jaw tensed, and the next water gun came even harder, a raging torrent determined to finish the fight. Onyx couldn't withstand a single full-powered hydro pump. With a heavy thud, it collapsed to the arena floor. "Oh my God! Knocked out in one shot," the announcer cried. Onyx, despite all that training, never even got a chance against Dragonite. Look at Dragonite's trainer. So calm, like he knew exactly how this would end. His commentary ignited the crowd. Every one of the thousands of spectators locked onto Dragonite, murmuring in awe. "That kid, I never would have guessed. He's not flashy or famous, but his Pokémon is on another level. If nothing crazy happens, the Tobe, P-Spot's his for sure. Dragonite is unstoppable." In the 9th group seating area, Owen leaned forward, eyes fixed on the battlefield. Beside him, his partner Tenton watched in silence. "He's good," Owen said softly. Dragonite matches Tenton's strength, and look at its stamina. It's brimming with energy, especially right before it evolves. Releasing that power almost seems effortless. Owen paused, turning to Tenton. "What do you think?" Tenton's eyes ignited with renewed determination as he met Owen's gaze. The vine snake showed no fear of its opponent's power. If anything, the stronger the rival, the more fiercely it fought. "Oh, and one more thing," Owen said, crouching beside the coiled serpent. "If it tries to evolve after a match, don't hold it back." With the third round concluded, the fourth wave of battles was already underway. The officials had just reopened the arena, and Owen fell in step beside another trainer as they headed towards Stadium 9. "Hey," the boy greeted him without preamble. He had short, dark hair, a black t-shirt, and a look that screamed rebel. He pointed at the vine snake curled around Owen's arm. "That's your first fight, isn't it? You've been cradling it like a baby all this time." Owen froze. He met the boy's skeptical gaze. "No, why would you think that?" "Pokémon are for battling," the boy said with a shrug. "Yet here you are, spoiling yours like it's a pet." Owen raised an eyebrow. "Aren't you worried this will just make you overconfident?" The short-haired boy smirked and withdrew a Pokeball. He pressed the button, and a Sandshrew burst forth, claws digging eagerly at the ground. "I've already won 9 battles with this Sandshrew," he declared. "You're about to witness my 10th straight victory." He puffed out his chest. "To shore up its weaknesses, I've trained it in every condition, running through pouring rain, swimming across rivers. Nothing's held it back." Owen just blinked. Train a Sandshrew to overcome its weakness to water? How did that help against his grass-type Pokémon? And frankly, he didn't believe in punishing a creature like that. He studied the little armadillo-like Pokémon as it shook off droplets, its scales looking oddly loose from all that soaking. Pokédex entry: Sandshrew. Type: Ground ability. Sandrush level 15. Individual values: IVs. HP 18, Attack 20, Defense 19, SB Attack 10, SP Defense 11, Speed 12. Moves: Scratch, Poison Sting, Sand Attack, Rollout, Fury Cutter. Its loyalty was untested, intimacy 0, and it looked decidedly uncomfortable in its wet scales. Owen sighed inwardly. This was going to be an interesting battle. "Fine," he said. "Let's get started." Owen reached into his own belt and tossed out a Pokeball. A swirl of green light revealed his partner, a grass-type Pokémon, ready for the challenge. Drenched or dry, Owen knew one thing: underestimating an opponent could be just as dangerous as overtraining your own, and he was prepared to prove it. Owen's power was unrivaled among the 9 contenders, yet even his strength alone wouldn't be enough to draw the Vine Snake's notice. Chapter 22. High above the battlefield on the Aegis Blade, commentator Li Bing exhaled warily. "This gig sure pays. Burns a hole right through your wallet," he muttered, massaging his temples. How was he supposed to justify gushing over a Dragonite when the trainer's biggest claim to fame was munching potato chips between moves? If it weren't for his own tight finances, Li Bing would have quit this job ages ago. He glanced at the schedule. The third round had wrapped up with no breakout stars in sight. Only a handful of fresh faces had impressed him, and none enough to fill his airtime. Li Bing drifted among the 9 arenas, killing time until the 4th match began. "Huh, what do we have here?" He tapped his headset, amused. VNU 8 features a Squirtle versus a Bulbasaur. Even rarer, each trainer in this bracket chose one of the 3 classic starters. He leaned forward, microphone live. "Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to VNU 8. Today's battle showcases 2 fan favorites, the water-type Squirtle on the left and the grass-type Bulbasaur on the right. Let's see which strategy comes out on top." Below him, Owen, fresh from a scolding by the enforcement officers in the contestant area, studied his Squirtle with narrowed eyes. Something about it looked off. He couldn't put his finger on the difference, but his jaw tightened as he recalled the earlier reprimand. Owen's expression darkened with resolve. Whatever subtle change this Squirtle possessed, he'd be ready. The arena fell quiet the moment Owen stepped up beside Qin Shu. Everyone knew she called him Brother Owen, and it was because of his insistence that she'd been brave enough to brush off their challenger, Jiang Xiaoming. If Owen hadn't been there, how could Qin Shu have so effortlessly dismissed Jiang's taunts? "You really think your Squirtle can beat my Bulbasaur?" Jiang sneered. "I've told you already, it's impossible." Qin Shu's lips curved into a calm, confident smile. Just as Owen had advised, she ignored him. The starting bell rang. Qin Shu raised her head and gave the command with total conviction. "Squirtle, use all that special training you've done. Water gun." Jiang let out a mocking snort. "Please, your little Squirtle's water gun is nothing against my Bulbasaur." His laughter died on his lips as a searing jet of water shot out from Squirtle's mouth, striking Bulbasaur square in the chest. The attack was so fast, so precise, that Bulbasaur staggered back, whining in pain. Bulu, Bulba. Jang's eyes went wide. Just a few days ago, that same water gun hadn't even ruffled his Pokémon. How could it be so powerful now? Sensing his shock, Chinchu pressed her advantage. Squirtle, one more water gun, quickly. Squirtle's eyes gleamed with determination as another torrent of water formed, ready to overwhelm Bulbasaur before he could recover. The crowd held its breath. Get out of the way! Zhang Xiaoming shouted, but it was already too late. His Bulbasaur, still reeling from the last blow, couldn't dodge the perfectly aimed water gun that Owen's Squirtle had drilled into muscle memory. From the observation platform above, Li Bing leaned forward, unable to hide his admiration. That Squirtle is impressive, he whispered to his shield blade. Its water gun is flawless. He frowned, perplexed. That level of precision clearly exceeded what its young trainer ought to have achieved. Shaking his head, Li Bing dismissed his curiosity and followed Shield Blade off to watch the 9th match. In the next arena, a short-haired challenger glared at the coiled serpentine before him. He bit his lip and raised his voice. Sandshrew, use Combo Slash! This was Sandshrew's 4th skill in the battle, after Roll, Poison Sting, and now Combo Slash, and still none had even phased the vine-like Pokémon. Roll had been too predictable, Poison Sting was dodged without effort, and the successive slashes of Combo Slash had been effortlessly blocked by Serpentine's whipping vines. The challenger's jaw tightened. He was running out of options and time. Owen's opponent didn't even try to contend with the Sandshrew. He treated it like a mere sharpening stone. Owen turned to his vine snake, still half mysterious but ready to heed his command. Channeling his evergreen power into the creature, he said, Vine. The snake's slender head bowed in acknowledgement. Use Vine Whip, Owen continued. Not a moment later, the Sandshrew's rollout attack unspooled. The spiked armor Pokémon somersaulted forward on pure momentum, claws gleaming a frigid white as it aimed straight for the vine snake. But before it could make contact, 2 emerald-green whips of living vine lashed out in perfect unison, catching the Sandshrew as if it were a wooden top. The force of the strike sent it hurtling over 10 meters across the arena before it crashed to the ground. That was the vine snake's vine whip at its peak, speed maximized and sharpened by its mastery of pull, unleashing a devastating blow in the space of a single heartbeat. The man with the crew cut, who had been so confident of his combo attack, watched in disbelief as his prized strategy was shredded in an instant. What are you doing? A joke? How is this possible? He stammered, eyes wide. Below him, the dazed Sandshrew lay unmoving, utterly unable to rise after that one punishing blow. The crew-cut trainer's eyes went wide as he looked at his own Sandshrew. He knew that Pokémon inside and out, its attack might be lacking, but its defense and raw strength were top-notch. Yet here it lay defeated. He could hardly believe it. How can your vine snake be so powerful? Owen gave him a thoughtful look. If you want the full story, head to Wutong Town and find the neighboring breeding house. That's where the secret of vine snake's strength is kept. Teng Teng? The vine snake tilted its head, amber eyes blinking in puzzled curiosity. How was this his concern? Do me a favor, spread the word, Owen said quietly, the evergreen aura softening his tone. Teng Teng? Unaware that he'd just earned his trainer's respect, Teng Teng coiled a little tighter, leaves rustling along his body. Got it. Thanks for the advice. The crew-cut man nodded sincerely, recalled his Sandshrew, and left the battlefield. He felt richer for the experience, especially after witnessing Owen's calm, unshakable confidence before and after the match. No matter how a mountain might crumble, he reminded himself, a true trainer never loses his cool. Vine Snake, Li Bing murmured, eyes widening as he studied Owen. As a gym leader, his perception was far keener than that of the casual fans who'd gathered for free. No ordinary grass type could have unleashed that whip-like strike just now, and from the Pokemon's fluid, confident movements, it was clear Vine Snake and its trainer shared an exceptional bond. Li Bing tapped his fingers against his clipboard, then let his gaze drift to seat number 1, where a poised Dragonite and its trainer prepared for the next match. In an event of this scale, would someone else try to steal the spotlight? A flicker of excitement sparked in his chest. Apart from the owner of Want Want Supermarket, no one knew the tournament was rigged. that Li Bing held the power to steer Owen's opponents once he cleared the group stage. If things went according to plan, Owen's decisive battle would be a fair fight against Dragonite's trainer. Nothing more, nothing less. And Li Bing intended to keep it that way. Chapter 23. The second round began just 5 minutes after the first, but Owen's vine snake hardly showed any signs of fatigue. It had used only 2 skills so far, and any minor energy drain was effortlessly replenished by Owen's god-level evergreen force. As long as Owen chose not to harm his own creature, its stamina remained virtually endless. Their next opponent stepped forward, a trainer with a Spearow. The moment he spotted Owen, his confident expression vanished. Even though Spearow's type theoretically had the upper hand, the trainer doubted his bird could dodge the vine snake's whip-like tendrils. All along the bench, the other members of Group 9 exchanged worried glances. None of them had much hope after witnessing Owen's performance in the opening round. Sure enough, Spearow darted forward at the start of the match, trying to weave past the thick vines. But its reflexes weren't quick enough. In an instant, the vine snake's lash struck true, knocking Spearow off its feet and ending the battle almost as soon as it had begun. Owen watched as his vine snake slithered nimbly across the short turf. In an open field, Spearow might have instinctively outpaced a grass-type serpent, but inside this cramped indoor arena, the poor bird had nowhere to escape. With a swift coil around its legs, the vine snake brought Spearow down in seconds. Victory in the second round. Next up was round 3, Pikachu. Owen knew better than to underestimate any Pikachu. After all, individual skill matters even more than type matchups. Yet when he sent out his vine snake, it surged forward, vines lashing out to bind the electric mouse before it could even charge a thunderbolt. Owen released a quick command, and the referee raised his hand. Tie-up was legal, and Pikachu could not break free. Another win. That concluded the morning's group stage battles. 9 trainers in total had advanced to the next round. The organizers ushered everyone to the dining hall for lunch and a 2-hour rest. Owen stretched and made his way toward the food tables when Chinshu came barreling into view, cheeks flushed, eyes bright. "Owen, good news," she exclaimed. "I made it through too." Owen nodded with a faint smile. He'd quietly kept track of all the pools, and he wasn't surprised. Chinshu had drawn exceptionally favorable matchups. Her Squirtle's water attacks neutralized the heavier fire types, and the less experienced challengers simply couldn't dodge her rapid water guns. It wasn't luck so much as how well she and Squirtle had worked together. As they filled their plates, Owen glanced at his friend and thought, "She sees her victories as luck. If only she knew how strategically she'd fought today." Owen watched Chinshu's triumphant grin as she straightened her cap, her eyes alight with excitement. Winning that first match had given her an electrifying boost of confidence. Already in her mind's eye, she stood in the grand Pokémon Championship arena, spotlights dazzling overhead, as she faced off against all 8 Elite Four members and emerged victorious. Owen stifled a smile. Ever since she was little, Chinshu had dreamed of becoming a Pokémon master, standing beneath the roaring cheers, watching her Pokémon perform at their absolute best, and knowing her years of hard work, those 3 days fishing, 2 days mending the nets, had finally paid off. Childhood dreams, after all, were meant to inspire us, whether they carried us to glory or simply left us with treasured memories. The morning's schedule had been packed, but by afternoon the pace eased. Only 9 trainers remained. 4 head-to-head battles would decide the semi-finalists, while 1 lucky competitor would advance automatically by bye. To keep things moving, all 4 duels would still start simultaneously. Now, with 10 minutes to go before the next round, the venue buzzed with anticipation. Owen checked Chinshu's Pokeballs one more time, then gave her an encouraging nod. Whatever happened next, they were ready. Seat number 7 in the stadium was reserved for Chi Heng, the owner of Want Want Su, Per Market, and the mastermind behind the entire tournament. He leaned forward in his chair and studied the 8 trainers who had advanced from the group stage. Technically, there were 9 qualifiers, but Chi Heng had discounted his own children from the tally. He never mixed family with business. On paper, these 8 all looked exactly as he had hoped, capable, experienced, and ready to put on a show. Yet there was one name he couldn't make sense of: Owen. the rookie from Group 9, alongside his lone Pokémon, Vinesnake. Across 4 battles so far, Owen's strategy had been baffling. In his first match, Vinesnake had struck twice, first with a flurry of Vine Whip, then a razor-sharp Leaf Blade. Fine, that made sense, but in every subsequent fight, Vinesnake had used nothing but Vine Whip to secure victory. Chi-Heng frowned. As a businessman, he wasn't fluent in every nuance of Pokémon combat, but even he knew that a trainer with genuine strength would vary moves, exploit type advantages, and manage energy. This muted approach, this one-trick pony tactic, reeked of sandbagging. Owen was clearly hiding something. Perhaps he was after a lucrative appearance bonus or a boost to his reputation. Determined to get to the bottom of it, Chi-Heng tapped his communicator and summoned his secretary, Li Bing. Moments later, Li Bing hovered in the balcony. "What is it, boss?" she asked. Chi-Heng didn't bother with pleasantries. "Show me the match schedule for the quarterfinals." Li Bing glanced down at her datapad. "But the schedule was set according to your original bracket, boss." "I know," Chi-Heng interrupted. "I want to see exactly where Owen landed." He leaned back, eyes narrowing. If this newcomer was up to something, he would find out, one way or another. 10 minutes remained before the match began. Chi-Heng frowned as he studied the bracket. "Where's Owen listed?" Li Bing scanned the sheet. "He's got to buy this round," he said slowly. "Weren't you going to randomize the early pairings and then have Chenglong finish the final match in one strike?" "No," Chi-Heng replied, shaking his head. "Owen's Vinesnake still hasn't shown its full strength. I want to see what it can really do. Match Shu-kun against Owen. Fire Pheasant is perfect to keep the Vinesnake in check. Now we'll force it to go all out." Okay." Li Bing hesitated, a flash of helplessness crossing his mind. His plan to keep Owen off the roster had clearly failed. He was about to dash up to the control tower and reorder the pairings when Chi-Heng caught his arm and offered a reassuring smile. "Brother Li," he said quietly, "I may not know much about Pokémon battles, but this decision, just you and me. If you pull this off, I'll double your fee." Li Bing froze, his heart tightening with unease, but he forced a small, embarrassed smile. "Oh, thank you. That's very generous of you." Chi-Heng returned the smile with a nod. "It's only fair." Once Li Bing and his bird-like Pokémon had lifted off into the sky, Chi-Heng's expression darkened. He might not know much about Pokémon battles, but he knew business. The strongest alliances were those built on mutual interest. And with this new age of trainers, he'd need every advantage he could secure for the sake of his children's future. 5 minutes before the Baby Cup's opening round, 9 trainers gathered at the draw table. Shu-kun, proudly cradling his fire pheasant, watched as the matchups were announced, only to blink in surprise when he heard his own name paired with Owen's. "Owen? We're facing each other?" He'd been so focused on Venu 1 that Owen's progress had slipped his notice. After all, just weeks ago, Owen hadn't even chosen his first Pokémon, yet here he was, booked into the group stage of the Baby Cup. And that, Shu-kun realized, was the state of play. Owen shrugged, not giving it much thought. Shu-kun sighed and strolled over. "Man, your luck really stinks," he said with a wry smile. "Don't worry, I'll go easy on you this time." Chapter 24. Do whatever you want. Owen didn't bother to explain himself further. People interpret situations differently, and the only way to shatter their preconceptions was with undeniable facts. Beside him, Chinshu let out a triumphant laugh, waving the slip of paper in his hand. Owen couldn't help but think, what luck. They say fortune favors the bold, or in this case the foolhardy. "Let the matches begin," crackled Li Bing's voice over the stadium loudspeakers. "Please proceed to the arena corresponding to your draw number." Owen led his Vinesnake onto the combined arenas 1 and 2. Close behind strode Shu-kun, who carried his fire pheasant with him. In the player seats a moment ago, Shu-kun had teased that he'd give Owen the spotlight, but now, stepping onto the battlefield, his expression turned as serious as his challenger's. Owen might appear unassuming, but those who knew him respected his reputation. He graduated at the top of his liberal arts class and reigned supreme in every Pokémon simulation battle he entered. Time and again, he'd unveiled tactics that left even seasoned trainers reeling. Back in school, benchmarks for excellence were set against his achievements, and today would be no different. Together, Owen and Shu-kun raised their Pokeballs, ready to prove once more why Owen's record spoke louder than any words could. Owen watched the vine snake loom across the arena, its sinuous body coiled with barely contained energy. Its performance in the group stage had proved just how dangerous it was. He couldn't afford to underestimate such an opponent. Every move would have to be precise. "Let the match begin," boomed the announcer's voice. Owen took a steadying breath. "Fire Pheasant, use Lightning Flash, and add sparks." With a sharp cry, the flame-feathered bird sprang forward on its slender legs. The Lightning Flash enchantment surged through it, propelling it to a speed that rivaled any human sprinter. What fascinated Owen most was how, at that breakneck pace, Fire Pheasant could accurately hurl a hail of incandescent sparks. He raised an eyebrow. In countless earlier battles, he'd never seen Fire Pheasant employ this tactic. Clearly, his rival, the Vine Snake, had coaxed out a hidden trick. A blazing shower of sparks streaked across the arena, heading straight for the Vine Snake like a cascading torch. Owen's heart pounded. Dodge the first wave, then close in and strike with blade. Even at maximal speed, Fire Pheasant and the Vine Snake were still yards apart. Owen's plan hinged on a perfect evasion, followed by an immediate counterattack. If his timing was off by even a fraction, that torrent of flames could overwhelm his bird, or give the snake the opening it needed. Owen tightened his grip on the control reins. The outcome of this battle would depend on split-second decisions, and on whether Fire Pheasant could unleash its hidden potential when it mattered most. At gym-level distances, a few brisk steps are enough for most Pokémon, but for two small combatants under a meter tall, even that short span takes time to cover. Vine Snake slipped aside from the first wave of sparks with effortless grace and immediately caught Owen's intent. Use Lightning Flash, leap in with blinding speed, and strike the opponent. Fire Pheasant was impressive, blending Lightning Flash and Spark to turn a single bolt into dozens of crackling flecks. Yet beneath that dazzling display lay a critical weakness. It could only unleash its attack from the flank, and the pattern was painfully predictable. To avoid striking itself in the face, Fire Pheasant had to keep moving, edging around the attack zone to let the high-velocity sparks fly past harmlessly. But the more it evaded, the tighter the spray of sparks grew around its body. Sure enough, as Vine Snake shifted direction to meet it head-on, the sparks scattered wildly, and before long, Fire Pheasant hesitated to send out another spark at all. Owen's Vine Snake sprang into the air, twisting gracefully through a full 180 degrees. Its clover-shaped tail glowed bright white as it crashed into Shukun's Fire Pheasant with a thunderous bang! Both creatures recoiled, but only the Vine Snake shrugged off the impact. The Fire Pheasant was sent sprawling brutally to the ground. Owen hadn't expected his creature to interpret his unspoken command so precisely, especially without tapping into the power of his Changpan ability. He didn't hesitate. "Now, Vine Whip!" Two emerald-green tendrils unfurled from the Vine Snake's back, lashing forward to bind the downed Fire Pheasant. Shukun's eyes widened at Owen's swift strategy, but he barked out his counter-command, "Rise, Fire Pheasant!" As the vines coiled tighter, his voice grew louder. Under the force of that unwavering will, the Fire Pheasant strained against its bonds. With a desperate effort, it staggered to its feet, its feathers singed, its chest heaving, but it was up and ready to fight on. Vine Snake's twin tendrils shot out in a flash, wrapping around Fire Pheasant's wrists. Before the little bird could struggle free, it was flipped upside down and peppered with stinging Vine Whip strikes. "Fire Pheasant, return!" Owen called urgently. Across the field, Shukun's voice cracked in excitement, but overhead, referee Li Bing's decision came swift and final. Fire Pheasant can no longer battle. Vine Snake wins. In a Rookie Cup match, once a Pokémon loses its fighting capability, the contest is over. There's no need for a miracle evolution. Gently, Vine Snake set Fire Pheasant down and coiled its tail in quiet triumph. Owen grinned and knelt beside his partner. "Well done." "Vine," the serpent replied, the corner of its mouth twitching in a satisfied smile. It couldn't speak Owen's praises aloud, but its pride was unmistakable. Sukun approached, cradling his exhausted Fire Pheasant. He offered Owen a rueful shake of the head. "You really are too strong, Owen. I always suspected you weren't shying away from first place because you couldn't handle it," Chiheng said, leaning forward, "but because your heart simply wasn't in the running." Owen shrugged, meeting his gaze evenly. If you're really interested, swing by my place sometime. There's a breeding house next door in Wutong Town that's giving classmates a 20% discount. Yeah, if I get the chance, I'll drop by, Shukun replied, waving awkwardly. He scooped up his fire pheasant, its scarlet plumage still smoldering from the fight, and headed toward the exit, murmuring to himself as he went. He would need to change tactics next time. In the audience, Chi Heng watched Owen's vine snake recoil around the stunned pheasant and slither away, utterly unchallenged. He had poured resources into this baby cup exhibition, networking with sponsors, issuing invitations to high-profile guests, and now felt the walls closing in. Countless hours, untold sums of money, and all that effort threatened to be undone by this one unpredictable competitor. A cold dread settled over him. Owen was supposed to be a minor inconvenience, not a game-changer. He couldn't let that stand. Quietly, Chi Heng rose from his seat and murmured, "No, we have to have a word with him." Chapter 25. You said that once the match started, the vine snake would pretend to be defeated, taken out by the dragon in a single strike. With the quarterfinals over, only 5 competitors remained in the arena. During the break, Chi Heng, the promoter who'd been stationed outside the Want supermarket entrance, sidled up to Owen and led him to a quiet corner beneath the stands, all smiles. Owen frowned. "What is it?" Chi Heng beamed and withdrew a bank card from his pocket. "Look, brother, you can see how powerful the dragon is. In the finals, the vine snake stands no chance, so why not go along with my plan? Here, 500,000 yuan. Just show me some respect." Owen waved him off. "No thanks." Without another word, he turned and strode away. Rigged match? Never in his life. Chi Heng's grin froze as he watched Owen disappear, and after a long, tense moment, his face twisted into a scowl. What a spoiled kid. Doesn't know good advice when he hears it. He prowled back and forth, then pulled out his phone and dialed. "Hey, where are you?" "Dad, what's wrong?" came the voice from the entrance. Chi Heng's son stepped into view, clutching an enormous bottle of Happy House juice. Chi Heng's stern expression softened the moment he saw his partner. "When we face that vine snake in the final match," he instructed, "tell Chenglong not to hold back. Full power only." "That vine snake is no joke," the short, stout trainer growled. I know, Chi Heng replied, his annoyance only skin-deep. He turned on his heel and stalked away, muttering under his breath, "They specifically told us to stick to water gun attacks." Yet the faint curl at the corners of his mouth gave him away. He was looking forward to the showdown. Back at the contestants' bench, Teng Teng's snake slithered up to Owen, hissing indignantly. "Did you hear him? He doesn't think I can beat that dragon." Owen reached out and gently stroked the snake's head. "You know," he said, "maybe he came for us because he's afraid. He's worried we might snatch the championship right out from under him." Teng tilted his head, scales shimmering in confusion. Teng, you really think so?" "Absolutely." Owen nodded with mock solemnity. As Teng Teng's angry frown gave way to a thoughtful pout, Owen couldn't help but smile inwardly. For all that the little snake was clever, he still had a lot to learn about humans, and about competition. Owen's mind was still racing. Teng, he murmured. Serpentine, Owen's loyal Teng, tilted its head, as if acknowledging the logic in Owen's words. Its previously flared temper cooled noticeably, though a quiet tension still pulsed beneath its scales. Just then, the 4-versus-2 elimination match began. Owen's opponent strode out with a level 15 Spearow. Oddly enough, Qinshu had once again drawn a bye, advancing without lifting a finger. Owen shot a furtive glance at Li Bing, hovering high in the stadium stands. Had Li Bing arranged this? The thought left a bitter taste in his mouth. With a confident crack of energy, Serpentine dispatched the Spearow in a matter of seconds. The crowd erupted as the time ticked down to exactly 4 p.m., the official start of the finals. The champion of the Baby Cup would be crowned here today. The runner-up, meanwhile, would face Qinshu in a battle for second and third place. Just 3 minutes before Owen's final match, a chubby boy clutching a bag of potato chips navigated through the crowd and stopped in front of him. His half-lidded gaze was unsettlingly direct. "Hey," the boy drawled. Owen blinked. "Huh? What's up?" He studied the kid's round face and greasy hair. If he wasn't mistaken, this was the trainer with the Dragonite. Why had he chosen this exact moment to come see him? Owen's pulse quickened as he braced himself for whatever was coming next. Owen stood across from the plump boy, arms folded. Chi-Chang tilted his head, eyes bright with curiosity. I heard from my dad that you're incredibly powerful. Owen offered a thin smile. We'll find out once we spar. Any objections? He'd heard Chi-Hang's remarks earlier and couldn't shake his low opinion of this kid. Chi-Chang, however, didn't seem to notice Owen's coolness. He shrugged. If you weren't strong, my father wouldn't have ordered Long Long's energy suppressed. Honestly, I hate doing it. Owen blinked. Why's that? Chi-Chang dug into his pocket and pulled out a crinkled bag of potato chips. He offered it to Owen. Want one? Owen eyed the greasy fingers, then shook his head. I'm good. The boy popped a chip into his mouth and chewed thoughtfully. Look, whenever we force Long Long to hold back his transformation, it strains him, makes him restless and stiff. But Dad met some breeder who swore that short-term suppression can actually raise a dragon's power ceiling. I don't know if it's true, and I don't like hurting Long Long just for a maybe up in strength. I want to train him properly, without shortcuts. Silence fell for a moment as Owen considered the admission. Then he nodded. Fair enough. Let's see what you've got. He readied himself, anticipation and respect stirring in equal measure. Anyway, I'm pretty sure he was deceived and doesn't even realize it, Owen muttered, frustration flickering across his features. He glanced at Chi-Chang and let out a helpless sigh. Look at you. Do you really think you're cut out to be a Pokémon trainer? Chi-Chang raised an eyebrow, clearly taken aback. Owen leaned forward, elbows resting on his knees. Being a trainer isn't just about catching Pokémon. You've got to travel from town to town, challenge gym leaders, and face off against wild Pokémon. It's all incredibly dangerous. If you want to do this seriously, you need a strong physique, which means committing to real, hard training. He nodded toward the half-empty bag of potato chips sliding off the table. Right now, you're about 1.7 meters tall and nearly 200 kilos, with almost no muscle tone. That build isn't ideal for the rigors of a trainer's life. But don't get me wrong, anyone can become a trainer, as long as they're willing to put in the work. In our world, human bodies, just like battling Pokémon, grow stronger through disciplined exercise. Chi-Chang sighed and pushed the chips aside. Okay, you're right. He stood up, running a hand through his hair. But enough talk. Our match is about to start. Just play seriously. Win or lose, I've got your back. Owen barely noticed when Chi-Chang strode onto the battlefield ahead of him, his pace quickening as if he couldn't wait to begin. It was the first time Owen had seen Chang compete in person, and his initial irritation dissolved as he followed the eager trainer toward the center of the arena. Tonight was the final match. When the lights dimmed, cheers erupted at the entrances. Superior, nicknamed Vine Snake by the crowd, glided in with sinuous grace, its emerald coils shimmering under the spotlights. Opposite it stood Dragonite, wings folded neatly behind its hulking form. Despite their vastly different stages, Superior still a starter Pokémon, Dragonite fully evolved, both had reached this point using only a single move so far. Dragonite relying on Water Gun, Superior on a flawless combination of Vine Whip and Leaf Blade. Every spectator knew both had held back their true power. The finals are here at last, the announcer's voice boomed over the speakers. Who's your money on? Dragonite's raw strength is intimidating, but Superior's speed and precision have overturned expectations all tournament long. A nearby fan roared back, I've got to go with Vine Snake. There's something almost elegant about its style. If it lands that hidden move, Dragonite won't know what hit it. Owen took his place courtside, heart pounding. He'd seen too many battles to count to guess the outcome, but one thing was certain. When hidden talents clashed with brute force, the result would be unforgettable. The arena fell silent in anticipation, eyes fixed on the two Pokémon as they readied themselves. This was the moment every trainer and fan had been waiting for. The moment when ni champion would rise and another would fall. Chapter 26, a long, gleeful chirp reverberated through the arena. At the same moment, Owen heard the system's prompt in his mind. Congratulations, host. Dragon's joy value increased from 10% to 75%. Rewards, 10 bags of golden kilas, 1 magical candy, and 1 sea-level water stone. No sooner had the dragon been released than a mist of water vapor curled around its scales. Its mood was inscrutable. For the past moments, it had been forcing its energy output into suppression, its body swollen like an overfilled water pouch, every drop of power adding to mounting internal pressure. Agonizing spasms had started to ripple across its form. Now that it was free, the dragon even felt a peculiar sense of gratitude toward Owen, who stood poised on the opposite side. Owen himself had been remarkably tactful, holding back his vine snake companion instead of launching an immediate attack. He'd given the dragon space to complete its transformation. Then, without warning, the triumphant chirp froze on the air and twisted into a painful groan. Ugh! The dragon's body convulsed, its limbs contorting in distress. Whispers of alarm swept through the crowd as everyone realized something had gone terribly awry. What's wrong with Longyan? It started crying the moment it appeared. Hasn't the match even begun? Chi-Chang's brow furrowed in confusion, then shifted to outright panic. Suspend the match! Please, suspend the match now! Though he had only recently qualified as a surface trainer, Longyan had been his companion for months. Watching his partner's distress, Chi-Chang waved frantically and shouted toward the sky. High above, Li Bing's eyes narrowed. He summoned his shield blade, sending it gliding down to inspect Longyan's condition. The creature stood rigid, its body wrapped in a thick mist of vapor that dripped onto the grass beneath. No wonder it had seemed off. During battle, it hadn't dodged a single attack or even shifted its weight. It had absorbed every blow, its reserves forcibly suppressed until now. As the shield blade transmitted its findings, Chi-Chang's face crumpled with worry. Tears welled in the corners of his eyes as he looked up at Li Bing. What do we do? He choked out. Chapter 8. Suppressed Power. Owen recognized the man beside the battlefield the moment he stepped forward. This was the gym-level trainer his father had personally invited, Li Bing, famed for his expertise in Pokémon physiology. Owen braced himself as Li Bing bent low, scanning Dragonite's trembling form. After a tense moment, Li Bing straightened and shook his head. I can only see the cause, long-term energy suppression. I don't know how to reverse it on the spot. We'll have to wait for the medical team. Below them, Dragonite convulsed, wings unfolding in a desperate, uncontrolled display of raw energy. Chi-Chang, the Pokemon's trainer, stared in horror. He clutched his Pokeball, then forced himself not to recall. The shock might kill his partner outright. Instead, he fumbled for his phone and dialed emergency services. Moments later, Li Bing's calm voice boomed through the stadium speakers. Attention, please. We require urgent medical assistance here. Dragonite's vital signs are dangerously unstable. A ripple of shocked whispers swept through the stands. What? He's been wearing an Everstone to lock down Dragonite's power, and then he'd dare to enter the Junior Cup? That's just cruel. Technically, it's within the rules. Everstones only prevent evolution. But after suppressing that much energy, triggering a transformation now, it's like pouring water on a flood. It could tear Dragonite apart from the inside. Judging by the clock, Snake's the only one still standing. This match is over. Oh my God. As medics rushed toward the field, Owen felt his heart pound. Somewhere beneath all that spectacle, a Pokemon's life and the integrity of the tournament hung in the balance. The opposing trainer sneered. Pathetic tactics. You call that a fight? Serpico, unleash your power now. Serpico? Owen's heart lurched as his Drago, Knight, writhed on the grass, each agonized hiss tearing at him. He's in so much pain. Will he even make it? At Owen's feet, Serpico the Serpent lowered his head, bewildered. He'd been expecting a fair duel, not a cheap ambush. Owen crouched beside him, voice low and urgent. Dragonite dumped more energy into that blast than his body could handle. The medics will stabilize him, but he won't walk away unscathed. The rival trainer clapped his hands. Enough delay. The match is officially on. I'll call on the arena's energy to sharpen your skills. Serpico. The serpent's hiss echoed his readiness. Grassy field. At the shout, the turf beneath them quivered and then exploded with life. Blades of grass sprouted in an instant, surging over half a meter tall. In moments, the thick green swath encircled Serpico completely, cutting off any straight path between him and Dragonite. Hidden beneath the verdant canopy, Serpico readied himself for the next move, whatever it might be. Owen's command rang out sharply. Tang Whip! In an instant, two sinuous vines blurred into emerald streaks. They shot toward Chi-Chang, who stood helplessly beside Chenglong, bound him before he could even react, and dragged him out of the way. Owen exhaled, his shoulders sagging as he tapped into Changpan's power for the very first time. An invisible current of energy pulsed from his form and homed in on Chenglong, carrying Owen's unspoken instruction. Stick to the plan. Chenglong, use water gun on the vine snake. Though Owen's words were silent to any bystander, they echoed unmistakably in both Chenglong's and Chi-Chang's minds. Chi-Chang froze, bewildered by the voice that seemed to come from nowhere, and then, panic seizing him, he shouted, "Water gun!" In the swaying green grass, the vine snake flickered in and out of view, tracing an eerie, looping pattern. Every time its shadow disappeared, a jet of water hissed down on the spot it had just occupied, as if guided by perfect precision. What? No! Li Bing's pupils contracted in alarm. He knew their goal had been to clear the energy blockade in Chenglong's body, but trying to force it out with a skill now was like poking a hole in a water-filled plastic bag. The internal pressure would only enlarge the breach, making things far worse. Owen stared in disbelief. The rupture seemed to come from the inside out. No one could tell exactly where the hole had opened. Yet the moment the water jet hit, something strange happened. Chenglong's pained expression eased, as if he'd suddenly stopped feeling any pain at all. The powerful spray swept across the grassy field, but it never actually struck the vine snake. "Green grass mixer, parasitic seeds," Owen called. At his command, 2 whirlwinds of emerald green leaves formed instantly in the tall grass, spinning fiercely to his right and left. Startled, Chenglong spat out his water cannon, his once potent blast sputtering as its energy nearly dissipated. All that remained was a final trace of power, just enough for Owen's parasitic seeds to latch on and finish the job. The left whirlwind was blasted apart by the quivering stream of water, but the right one struck true. Razor-sharp leaves slashed through Chenglong's hide, carving a shallow cut and embedding dozens of tiny parasitic seeds into the wound. Within moments, those seeds would siphon off the last of Chenglong's lingering strength, and Owen would have victory firmly in his grasp. Chenglong froze mid-motion. The pain that had twisted his features melted away, replaced by a strange, almost comfortable expression. Chapter 27. The spectators in the stadium erupted in astonishment. "Oh my God, did you see that? I thought Snake's trainer was playing dirty, but he's actually bleeding energy out of Dragonite." Veteran trainers leaned forward, eyes shining with recognition. What a masterstroke! He baited Dragonite into confusion, then unleashed Green Grassy Field to throw it off balance. With Dragonite disoriented, Snake kept triggering water guns so rapidly that Dragonite burned itself out. And yet Snake takes almost no damage. Utter brilliance. This kid's trainer is at least advanced rank. A bystander nudged his friend in disbelief. "Hold on, he's a high school student?" His friend shook his head. "You've got it wrong. I said he's at least advanced, maybe even more elite. From start to finish, he never once called out a proper command to Snake. Their coordination is so flawless, it's like they're reading each other's minds." Murmurs of awe swept through the crowd. If this was the work of a teenager, what heights could he and Snake reach next? "Success! Chenglong has broken through." The announcer's triumphant shout cut through the tension like a knife, and the crowd erupted in cheers. For a moment, the entire arena seemed to vibrate with excitement. "Teng Teng's Snake is incredible. How can one creature be so powerful?" Someone hollered from the stands. All at once, a deafening chant rose up. "Teng Teng's Snake! Teng Teng's Snake!" The roar of approval washed over Owen like a wave. Inside Owen's mind, the familiar chime of the system sounded, followed by a prompt. "System notification. Congratulations, host. You have raised Teng Teng Snake's affection from 60% to 80%. Reward: 5 bags of Jinkala, 1 magic candy, 1 special scale fruit." A moment later, Owen saw Chenglong's updated status flash before him. Name: Chenglong species elf. Gender: male. Special trait: water storage grade, purple power level 22 to 25. Description: a Chenglong whose energy has fully released and undergone transformation. And then one more ding. System notification. Congratulations, host. You have raised Dragonite's affection from 40% to 90%. Owen allowed himself a small, satisfied smile. With Chenglong's breakthrough and the dramatic turn in Dragonite's temper, the balance of power in the arena had shifted decisively, and the real excitement was only beginning. Rewards: 10 bags of golden Keela, one magical candy, and an S-rank ocean crystal. According to legend, the crystal from the ocean temple soaks up the sea's power, granting tremendous benefits to water-type Pokémon. Owen listened to the crowd's unified cheer and felt a twinge of helplessness. He'd meticulously planned every detail of this competition, yet all eyes were on his victorious vine snake. Irritation flickered through him. He couldn't believe he was actually jealous of his own Pokémon. But when he looked at the ocean crystal and the special scale fruit he'd just received, his mood brightened instantly. These rewards were more than deserved. He could tuck the crystal beneath the reservoir for Melodic to draw upon, and the way his vine snake's joy meter had shot through the roof confirmed one thing. He'd guessed right all along, a vine snake that thrived on battle and the roar of the crowd. Woo! Long Long let out an exuberant cry as he absorbed the crystal's stabilizing energy. Owen couldn't suppress a small smile. Behind him, Chi-Chang stood wide-eyed, utterly stunned by the display of raw Pokémon power. Owen stared in disbelief. Just moments ago, Long Long had been locked in what looked like a life-or-death struggle. Yet here he was, visibly stronger, his aura glowing with fresh power. Owen swallowed and asked, "Long Long?" With a triumphant cry, Long Long bounded across the lawn, muscles rippling, every movement brimming with vitality. He skidded to a halt in front of Owen, clearly fitter than he'd ever seen him. Nearby, the chubby boy who trained Long Long burst into tears. He dropped to his knees and threw his arms around the creature's neck. "Don't do that to me again." He sobbed. "I thought something terrible had happened to you." In the tall grass at the edge of the lawn, the Teng Teng snake froze. It flicked its tongue and hissed softly, "Teng Teng," as if wondering whether the two of them had suddenly become friends. Owen watched the snake's rigid coils. Their battle had been interrupted just as it was reaching its peak. He could almost sense the frustration radiating off the serpent, like phantom insects crawling under its scales. Still, after hearing Owen's quiet acknowledgement, the snake didn't lash out. It simply settled back among the blades of grass, waiting patiently for its next opponent. Inside its slender body, a surge of energy churned. Tiny pulses of power danced beneath its scales, an unmistakable sign of an imminent evolution. Recognizing this crucial moment, the Teng Teng snake stilled its emotions, centered its rising chi, and prepared to transform at peak condition. About a minute later, spurred on by the audience's cheers, Chi-Chang suddenly realized he was still in the arena. He scrambled to his feet, turned toward the boy opposite him, Owen, and offered a hesitant, embarrassed bow of gratitude. After a moment's hesitation, he lifted his head and spoke clearly. "I concede. Owen, this match is yours." A stunned silence fell over the stands. Then a wave of murmurs swept through the crowd, this time laced with respect and relief. He gave up? Honestly, it's the right call. That Dragonite of his would have steamrolled the snake. I judged him by his size, didn't see this coming. Well, you can't argue with results. Dragonite's on another level. Owen's face stayed calm, but inside he felt a flicker of surprise. His father had poured so much into this battle, the training, the fees, the sleepless nights. If Chi-Chang truly forfeited now, all that effort would seem half-wasted. He glanced at Chi-Chang, waiting to see if the older trainer would change his mind. But Chi-Chang only nodded and withdrew his Pokeball, conceding defeat. The bell rang to mark the end of the match. Owen exhaled, relief mingling with pride. He had won, against both the opponent and everyone's expectations. As cheers broke out around him, Owen allowed himself a small, triumphant smile. Owen scanned the arena as the crowd broke into applause, most of them commending his opponent for raising the white flag. He tucked a strand of hair behind his ear, a thoughtful smile tugging at his lips. "If you're grateful that I let the vine snake assist your dragon," Owen said quietly, his voice barely above a whisper, "then there's no need to forfeit. My vine snake is itching for a real challenge right now." Though his tone was soft, the stadium speakers carried every word crystal clear through the stands. "Vine," Owen called. At his command, the once dull grassy field seemed to pulse with life. From the emerald turf slithered a colossal serpent of winding vines, its scales gleaming in the bright lights. Two amber eyes, fierce and eager, locked onto the dragon across the arena. The dragon, sensing its rival's arrival, let out a thunderous roar, scales ruffled, wings flexed. "Chenglong, water gun now." Its trainer shouted from the sidelines. With a single nod, Chenglong steadied itself. No longer the scattershot blast of before, this water gun was focused and ruthless. A jet of high-pressure water streaked across the field, tearing up chunks of turf and carving muddy trenches where lush grass had been moments ago. But the vine snake was already in motion. It coiled its body, muscles rippling beneath its leafy armor, ready to strike back. Anyone with a discerning eye could see that this Chenglong was far stronger than before. Parasitic seeds. Owen's eyes gleamed with realization. Those buried seeds weren't mere energy conduits. They were sprouting across Chenglong's body, siphoning away its physical strength. Owen's voice rang out sharp and clear. "Chenglong, fire the frost beam!" Chapter 28. Owen reluctantly barked out a new command. He'd already tried water gun, and it hadn't done a thing against the opposing vine snake. Truth be told, Owen never wanted to be a Pokémon trainer in the first place. He'd much rather stay home, minding his small supermarket, than gallivanting from one gym battle to the next. He knew next to nothing about high-level matches. He was just muddling through. Still, an ineffective water gun attack had forced his hand. "Dragonite, Ice Beam," he called, hoping to turn the tide. From Dragonite's maw shot a brilliant ice-blue beam. Owen aimed it directly at the thick patch of grass carpeting the battlefield, the very same green turf vine snake had conjured to strengthen itself. Under the beam's frigid onslaught, the soggy ground that had absorbed Watergun's blast began to crack and freeze. Crack! Crack! The ice spread, brittle and unforgiving, snapping the verdant mat in two. The icy barrier cut through the field's center, severing Vine Snake's link to its energy source. Owen exhaled, watching as the frost slowly crept across the turf. His makeshift strategy had worked. He'd dismantled Vine Snake's power boost. Now, with the battlefield neutralized, he might finally have a chance to turn his half-hearted challenge into a real victory. Owen's Vine Snake coiled tighter, bracing itself as an enormous ice beam slammed into the tall grass, the blast shrinking the serpent's maneuvering room. "Woo!" it shrieked, the chill ringing through its scales. But the freezing blast did more than just pin it down. Vibrant, parasitic seeds sprouting inside Chenglong's body crackled with frost, and the snake hissed in pain. With a furious snap of its jaws, it tore one of the glowing seeds free. Then, whipping its body forward, it barked, "Vine Whip!" From the undergrowth, two sinewy green tendrils shot out, aiming straight for the opposing Dragonite. Instinctively, the dragon Pokémon spun on its heel, so quickly that Owen realized it must be as smart as it was powerful. Without waiting for any trainer's command, Dragonite gathered massive ice chunks, each the size of a millstone, and hurled them toward the reaching vines. In the tangle of high grass, pinpointing Vine Snake's exact position was impossible, so Dragonite lay in wait until the moment the serpent showed itself. The impact of ice against vine revealed the attacker's spot. Owen's eyes lit up. "Incredible reflexes," he whispered. "All right, Vine Snake, pull back." At once, the twin vines retreated into the grass. Owen leaned forward, voice sharp. "Now we face it head-on. Vine Snake, use double grass cutter. Hit it with everything you've got." There was no alternative. With a snarl, Chenglong readied itself for the decisive strike. Owen's Vine Snake faced a barrage of ice shards unleashed by Dragonite. He had two choices: meet Dragonite head-on and risk heavy damage, or pull back its whip vine and intercept the icy onslaught with its strongest move. Owen barked the order to choose safety over a headlong charge. Like a stallion suddenly unshackled, the Vine Snake drew its whip back in a single fluid motion. A green blur shot up out of the grass, its coiling body leaving only the gleam of a white illuminated tail in its wake. Hovering in midair, it pivoted to confront the speeding ice shards. In that moment, a latent power awakened within it, and the soft white light along its tail flared outward, racing down its length in a brilliant surge of energy. Evolution, an almost complete change that had waited just below the surface, erupted now with astonishing ease. The process lacked the turbulent thrashing often seen in Pokémon transformations. Instead, it was a gradual, graceful unfurling of new strength. Empowered by this breakthrough, the Vine Snake lashed out, slicing every ice shard into glittering fragments before they could strike. As the glow faded, the creature's body continued to stretch and refine itself. Where it had stood a mere 80 centimeters tall, it now measured well over a meter. Longer, leaner, and more capable than ever before. Owen's strategy had paid off. Not only had he shielded his partner from harm, but he'd also unleashed its true potential at precisely the right moment. As the blinding light finally faded, the immature, brash vine snake Owen had released vanished, and in its place stood a fully grown green ivy snake. A knowing smirk curled its slender snout, and a fierce confidence shone in its narrowed eyes. Owen let out a breath he didn't realize he'd been holding. A glance at the Pokédex-style readout hovering before him confirmed everything. Name, green ivy snake, gender female, type grass rank, red individual values, HP 25, attack 21 SP, attack 26, defense 25 SP, defense 24, speed 31, level 21-25, techniques, blade leaf, green grass blender, snake stare, vine whip, parasitic seed, magic leaf. Double green grass blender, Owen barked. High above the battlefield, the green ivy snake's eyes remained calm and focused. Then, with effortless grace, it dove. A surge of emerald energy pulsed from its tail, coalescing into a 2 to 3 meter whirlwind of razor-sharp grass blades. The cyclone hurtled downward toward the enemy dragon. When it struck, the ice boulders encasing the dragon shattered in a thunderous crack, icy fragments scattering across the snow-covered ground. The rush of wind snapped Owen back to reality. "Ice beam!" he bellowed. Chenglong, freshly evolved from the vine snake, focused its energy and sent a torrent of glittering ice crystals roaring toward the leafy whirlwind. For a moment, it seemed as if the beam might halt the spinning mass of vegetation, but then something astonishing happened. The ice shattered against the inner layer of leaves and was forced backward, crushed by a power far greater than anyone had anticipated. With a deafening crack, the whirlwind retaliated, slamming into Chenglong like a concussive blast. Scales flew, and a pained roar echoed across the arena. When the dust settled, Chenglong staggered, blood trickling from multiple wounds. Though it had just completed its breakthrough, the impact proved too much, and the dragon-like creature collapsed in defeat. The victor, an emerald-green vine snake, coiled plainly on the battlefield, then turned to Owen with a triumphant smile. Its bright eyes spoke volumes. This round was its. System notice, congratulations. Your green vine snake's affection has risen from 80% to 95%. Rewards earned, 3 intermediate golden Kella, 1 Temps intermediate magic candy, 1 attribute development energy block. Reversal. What a shocking turnaround. I was certain Longyan, having already broken through its limits, would claim this match hands down. I never imagined there was another ace waiting in the wings. Longyan pressed Vine Snake relentlessly, squeezing every advantage, then seized a fleeting opening to strike. It looked as if Owen's Longyan had poured every ounce of its strength into ending the fight, yet that wasn't enough. Under crushing pressure, Vine Snake completed its evolution in the blink of an eye, and with a single devastating blow, it took Longyan down. Absolutely breathtaking. This is the baby cup? Li Bing, perched atop his shield blade monster, practically vibrated with excitement. The raw power displayed here, unbelievable. He paused to let the crowd's stunned silence settle before continuing, breathless. From the moment Longyan limped early in the match, I thought for sure the title would go to Vine Snake's trainer, Owen. Then Owen pulled back Longyan's energy mid-battle, hoping to secure victory. Just when everyone assumed Longyan had the fight in the bag, Vine Snake evolved and turned the tables completely. And in that instant, the entire arena exploded in cheers. Li Bing's gaze never left Owen's face. He'd watched him channel the dragon's residual energy, saw how calmly he oversaw the Vine Snake's evolution, and felt certain of 2 things. Owen knew exactly what he was doing, and he was supremely confident. After all, he'd stood more than 30 meters away from that injured dragon, never once creeping closer to study it. Who but a master breeder would dare operate at such a distance? Clearing his throat, Li Bing lifted the microphone. Ladies and gentlemen, you saw that when the dragon was hurt, it was Owen who stepped in and treated it. That alone proves he's not just an outstanding trainer, he's a fully qualified breeder as well. Would anyone like to know where he's trained? The audience, still buzzing with excitement from the unexpected showdown, exploded into cheers and shouts. An eager voice rang out first. We do. Really? Li Bing smiled, pacing the stage. A young breeder right here in Wutong City? Tell me, what family does he come from? Chapter 29. Owen watched in surprise as Li Bing descended from the announcer's platform. He hadn't expected the sky-high commentator to single him out. He assumed he'd have to wait until after the match, when reporters rushed the stage to promote his family's breeding house. Now, with Li Bing gliding down before him, Owen cleared his throat, ready to launch into his impromptu presentation. Li Bing raised an eyebrow. "Owen, congratulations on winning the Baby Cup. During today's final, you identified and corrected Longyan's condition mid-battle. Are you a breeder? If so, which breeding house are you with?" Owen smiled confidently. "I am. I've been studying Pokémon breeding under my parents' guidance since I was a child, 12 years now. I can spot any issue in a Pokémon at a glance. As for my breeding house, I represent the neighbor breeding house in Wutong Town." He gently lifted the green vine snake into his arms. "Look at its skin, smooth and radiant, and notice how precisely it channels energy. That's all thanks to the special energy cubes we developed at the neighbor breeding house." Owen watched in mild annoyance as Li Bing yanked the microphone away from him mid-speech. "Right now, at our little shop, we've got eco-made maintenance energy cubes and physical energy cubes, guaranteed 100% natural, so you never have to worry about your Pokemon's stamina or health again. We can even tackle all kinds of Pokemon troubles. It's first come, first served, and—" Hey! I'm not done yet!" Owen protested, stepping forward, but Li Bing had already flipped the mic off. Under the bright studio lights, Owen's vine snake looked utterly bewildered. The poor thing was hoisted into view like a living billboard. "Green vine snake," it seemed to ask, blinking owlishly at the camera. Li Bing's cheeks went pink. He realized with horror that this entire moment was being beamed live on Wutong City's Pokémon Battle channel, potentially to thousands of viewers. He just turned Owen's partner into a product pitch. He cleared his throat, trying to salvage the situation. "Ahem. Sorry about that, folks. If you're interested in top-quality, eco-friendly energy cubes, be sure to drop by the neighborhood cultivation shop. We've got exactly what your team needs. And now, let's get back to our final match of the day. Do you think Chi-Chang can still compete?" someone shouted from the stands. Owen tried to steer the conversation back to the upcoming bout, but it was too late. The moment he'd casually mentioned the neighborhood cultivation house, the crowd went wild. Phones appeared in hands all around, fingers flying as people searched the name online. By the time they'd finished their detective work, there was no final match at all. Chi-Chang's dragon hadn't recovered from its injuries in time, and the bout was forfeited. That left Owen firmly in first place, and surprisingly, Qin Shu, who hadn't fought since the group stage, comfortably in second. Everyone agreed she'd been the true dark horse of the tournament. No sooner had the announcer called an end to the competition than Owen was swarmed by reporters. "Which trainer academy did you attend? What's your current breeder rank?" They fired off questions in rapid succession. With measured calm, Owen answered each one, and deftly slipped in another plug for the neighborhood cultivation house. Then the award ceremony began. Tournament director Chi Heng took the stage, his face unreadable as he presented Owen with the gleaming Baby Cup trophy. There was no doubt this year's event had been a roaring success, and thanks to Owen's victory, his little shop on the outskirts of the city would be more popular than ever. The arena buzzed with energy, the ratings were through the roof, and yet, at the final moment, the fruit chosen wasn't the one anyone expected. Still, without Owen's quick thinking, the entire Baby Cup could have ended in disaster. A young breeder with such talent deserved respect, not reproach. So when the trophies were handed out, the chief judge beamed and announced the first prize, 1 Pokémon egg from the 3 classic starters, an 88,000 yuan Want supermarket gift card, a special invitation to the Want supermarket headquarters egg guessing challenge. Owen received the gift card on the spot. The starter Pokémon eggs were still on their way. He'd be notified within a week to come and choose the one he wanted. Finally, he learned more about the egg guessing challenge, a 2-stage competition in which contestants face 30 eggs. First a secret guess round, then an open guess round. It sounded like a thrilling next step in his journey. Owen studied the rules carefully. In the open guessing contest, he'd have to correctly identify the species of at least 28 out of 30 Pokémon eggs. Hit that mark, and he could choose one of those 28 eggs to take home. The secret guessing challenge was even trickier. Each egg was wrapped in a layer of black cloth, leaving contestants only their sense of touch, texture, temperature to go on. Nail 25 species correctly, and you earn the right to select one from those 25 mystery eggs. Master Chi Heng had already told him that the eggs hidden under cloth were almost always of higher quality than the ones in the open lineup. Want Supermarket's Pokémon egg guessing arena operates around the clock at their Hunan province headquarters in Changsha, the provincial capital. That meant Owen could return whenever he chose. By 6 o'clock that evening, the final round wrapped up, and the dwindling crowd drifted away. Owen rubbed the back of his head, glanced down at the green vine snake coiling around his shoulders, and stepped out of the arena, ready to plan his next visit. It was 6 o'clock, yet the sky still glowed with a fiery sunset. Bands of pale pink and white clouds arched from the eastern edge of Wutong City all the way to the west, like the fading trail of some great skyrocket. "That's so much," whispered, staring at the prepaid shopping card in her hand. Her grin was so wide it threatened to split her cheeks. Owen chuckled softly. He knew Chinshu's family wasn't wealthy, just affording that starter. Squirtle had already stretched their budget. There was no way they could bankroll its training beyond the basics, not without help. But this card would carry her through the critical early stages of nurturing Squirtle. "Tapping it must feel good," he teased, nudging her gently. "Are you heading home now?" Chinshu blinked in surprise. "Aren't you? I've got to swing by Want Supermarket first," Owen said, scanning the street for a taxi. "I'll miss the last bus, so I'll grab a cab home afterward." "Ah, okay," she replied, her excitement tempered only by a nod. There was no need to ask him what he was buying. She was already counting down the minutes until she could put that card to use. Owen couldn't wait to show his parents and grandfather that he'd just placed second in today's Baby Cup and won a generous shopping card to boot. Now he wouldn't have to worry about Squirtle's meals for quite some time. Grinning at the thought, he looked up as a fiery tail, like a comet's, traced an arc across the sky. With that spectacle still vivid in his mind, Owen set off toward the Want Supermarket. The glowing trail had awakened something in him. His latent Tokiwa energy tingled, and he could almost sense the distant presence of a Dragonite. Chapter 30. You're Owen, right? The one who just won first place in the Baby Cup? Under the bright lights of the Want Supermarket, a young woman in a red uniform looked up from her register and peered curiously at him. Owen blinked, momentarily surprised that anyone here would recognize him. Was it because of his victory? Or his looks? Before he could answer, her attention shifted to the green ivy snake coiled at his feet. Her eyes lit up. No way! It really is the green ivy snake. It's so cool and handsome. Owen suppressed an exasperated sigh. He gave a small, polite smile and crouched down beside his Pokémon. "Tang, come on, buddy." At his soft invitation, the green ivy snake slithered behind Owen's legs, clearly relieved to escape the stairs. Giving the cashier a brief nod, Owen steered his companion down the aisle and away from the curious onlookers. He had a list of errands today. Pick up some tree fruit saplings, then head to the Pokémon League to inquire about adding a Rotom to his team. After his Baby Cup triumph, he knew fans and fellow trainers would flock to his training house in the coming days. His current stock of Oran and Pecha berries wouldn't be nearly enough to craft the physical energy and detox energy blocks they'd need, and he still had his own rigorous training to prepare for. Owen stepped into Want Supermarket's gardening wing and surveyed the rows of saplings lining the shelves. He needed blackberry trees for crafting maintenance energy blocks, and dragonfire fruit trees for specialty awakening blocks. Different energy blocks might form the backbone of any cultivation shop, but it was ultimately the breeder's own skill that determined success. He paused in front of the price tags. Even the most basic orange fruit saplings were going for 15,000 credits each. And that was no guarantee of a healthy tree. Saplings demanded precise climate control, constant care, and months of patience. The rarer varieties weren't even sold here. Those had to be hunted down through private brokers at even steeper prices. Owen took a slow breath. This was an investment in his future. He picked out 15 orange fruit saplings and 15 blackberry saplings, then added a handful of fresh oranges and blackberries to his cart, enough to start producing simple energy blocks while the new trees matured. At the checkout, the scanner beeped up a total of 48,000 credits. More than half of the 88,000 credits on his commerce card vanished in an instant. He handed over his card with a small sigh. When he finally stepped back into the street, Wutong City was already cloaked in dusk. Neon signs flickered on, and the evening crowd buzzed around him. Owen tightened his grip on the cart's handle. He knew the real work was just beginning. Owen carried the green vine snake into the Donghua Alliance Pokémon branch in Wutong City and laid out his request. Within minutes, an attendant guided him to the Alliance's Rotom Service Center, a sleek shop filled with banks of mobile phone-style devices, each housing a Rotom. Unlike other Pokémon organizations, the Donghua Alliance imposes strict conditions before a Rotom can journey with a trainer. You must graduate from rookie status and become a fully certified trainer. Only then are you deemed worthy of a Rotom partner. Officially, Owen was still a rookie, but thanks to the success of his specialized breeding shop, he'd secured an exception, and thus the right to pair with a Rotom. Lodo. The electric Pokémon flickered its antennae, eager for a trainer. Owen scanned the lineup. All the Rotoms were nearly identical, save for subtle tints in their glow. A crimson Rotom drifted forward, greeted him with an upbeat zap, and Owen knew he'd found the one. He paid the required 250,000 Pokédollars, secured the Rotom in its Pokéball, and tucked it safely away. With his new partner in hand, Owen didn't bother with a taxi or a bus. Instead, he set off on foot toward Wutong Town. It was mid-July, and the night sky was as luminous as still water. Moonlight poured down, in soft beams, misting the country road. All around him, frogs thronged the tall grass, their chorus so loud he couldn't tell if the dominant croak was from a stolid quacking frog or some other hidden species. But Owen didn't mind. He walked on, companionship secured, ready for whatever awaited them down the road. Teng, Owen called softly. We're really walking all the way back? The little green vine snake blinked at him in confusion. It had never questioned Owen before, why he went this way, why he did anything, but today it simply couldn't understand his plan to hoof it all the way home. Owen grinned. Hop back into your Pokeball. I'll send you out when we get there. Despite the vine snake's dubious, almost pouty stare, Owen raised the Pokeball, tapped it, and watched as the snake materialized inside. Satisfied, he slung the ball onto his belt and continued down the dark country road. After a good while, enough time that Kent Town lay far behind them, Owen paused. He looked up at the night sky. Stars glittered overhead, but among them a dark shape streaked past, something big and powerful. Owen's heart skipped a beat. The aura he sensed was exactly like the one emanating from the Charizard that had soared above Wutong City earlier that afternoon. Could Chi-Heng really have summoned something that strong? Owen shook his head, trying to dispel the thought. He forced a laugh. Chi-Heng was the branch manager of a Want supermarket in Wutong City. There was no way he was secretly raising a Dragonite, right? Chapter 3. The Arrival of Dragonite. Owen scanned the holographic display floating before him. The Pokédex read, Pokémon Dragonite, gender, female, ability, multiscale nature, red, individual values, HP 24, attack 30, SB, AC 25, defense 25, SB, def 25, speed 24, level 69 moves, Feather Dance, agility, twister, thunder wave, fire punch, thunderbolt, dragon tail, dragon pulse, dive, safeguard, dragon dance, hyper beam. Affection, 20, very pleased with your performance in the little cup. Happiness, 40, I'm a happy messenger. Owen's heart raced as the reading stabilized. He'd never seen a Dragonite in the wild, let alone one occupying the upper ranges of those stats. He barely registered the flicker of sunlight through the trees before a shifting shadow swept over him. The dark shape glided closer, stirring the leaves with a soft breeze. Owen stepped back, eyes wide. When at last the Pokémon revealed itself, he froze in awe. Towering over 3 meters tall, it had a gentle, almost naive expression, framed by 2 short antennae atop its broad orange head. Its stout, yellowish body gleamed, and those small, rounded wings on its back flexed impatiently. A leather satchel was slung over its hip, swaying lightly with each breath it took. For a moment, Owen and Dragonite simply stared at each other. The forest around them held its breath. Then, with a soft chirp, the Dragonite fluttered forward, curiosity and welcome shining in its large, deep green eyes. Owen swallowed, squared his shoulders, and at last returned its gaze. This was the start of something extraordinary. Owen froze as the Dragonite before him tilted its head and let out a gentle, "Awoo." "Hello?" he replied, still unsure what to make of the dragon-like Pokémon. With deliberate care, the Dragonite withdrew an envelope and a pen from its satchel using its claw. It set them on the ground and spoke again. "Woo!" Owen bent to pick up the envelope, bewildered. Inside was a single sheet of paper, stark white except for one neatly printed question. What do you believe is the purpose of Pokemon's existence? The moment Owen unfolded the paper, he felt a faint tug in his mind, a subtle alteration, like a whisper of power. It didn't hurt, but it was unmistakable. Some form of psychic seal had been affixed to him, recording his exact location. Owen's pulse quickened, yet he remained calm. His innate rookie physique, a gift that bolstered his courage in the face of any Pokémon, steadied his nerves. He probed at the new power gently and concluded it was harmless. Still, the question on the paper, coupled with the Dragonite's strangely formal demeanor, sent a jolt through him. A single thought crystallized in Owen's mind. Could this be some kind of trial imposed by the so-called artificial beasts? If so, he'd better choose his words carefully. Steeling himself, Owen looked up at his draconic examiner and picked up the pen. He was determined to give an answer worthy of the challenge before him. "It looks like you've only supplied a single sentence. Could you please provide the full chapter you'd like me to revise? Once I have the complete text, I can rewrite it into polished, idiomatic English with Owen as the male lead." Chapter 31. Owen set the pen down for a long moment, staring at the blank page before him. Finally, he wrote a single, careful sentence. "Existence itself is a kind of meaning. No creature has the right to question or judge another's purpose in this world, and that includes you." He refolded the paper, slipped it into an envelope, and sealed it with a firm press of his thumb. From his storage ball, he produced a heavy satchel brimming with physical energy cubes and presented it to the waiting Dragonite. "Thank you for delivering this letter," Owen said gently, meeting the big dragon Pokemon's puzzled eyes. "I'd like you to bring a second message along with it. Think of it as a reminder." Dragonite blinked, curious, as Owen's gaze drifted toward the window. He spoke slowly, recalling the stoic figure of Mewtwo and the battles they'd faced. "You've known hardship and war. He began. You've seen enough pain to believe the world is nothing but suffering, but don't mistake your experience for the whole of existence. The world is vast, and beyond conflict there is simple life, joy in the everyday. If you ever get the chance, explore it. Let yourself feel the ordinary wonders we all too often overlook." "Woo?" Dragonite rumbled, gently curling its wings. With a delighted chirp, it plunged a massive hand into the satchel and withdrew an energy cube. The moment it tasted the sweet, revitalizing gel, its eyes sparkled. Then, with a respectful nod, Dragonite tucked both the letter and satchel into its saddlebag. "Safe travels," Owen called after it. As the great dragon rose into the sky, he watched until its silhouette melted into the clouds, hoping his words might guide not just a messenger, but a soul in search of life's true meaning. The night was quiet in Owen's hideout, broken only by the soft glow of his system interface. A holographic notification flickered into view. "Congratulations, Owen. Dragonite's affinity level has increased from 40% to 60%. Rewards: 3 bags of advanced Kinkella, 1 advanced magic candy, and 1 advanced special scale fruit. Consuming it grants a substantial boost to a Pokemon's special attack and speed." Owen raised an eyebrow. The jump in affinity wasn't huge, but the rewards were richer than before. Could it be that the stronger the Pokemon, the better the prize? He made a mental note to test the theory. Meanwhile, Dragonite wasted no time. With a delighted growl, he snatched 3 energy cubes, crunched them in a single bite, then accepted the envelope. Tucking the items carefully inside, he flexed his powerful wings and shot into the sky. In an instant, he was gone, his speed leaving Owen both impressed and a little envious. "When will I be lucky enough to catch a flying type of my own?" Owen muttered, wiping a bead of sweat from his brow. He shook his head at his own panic. Almost summoned Green Ivy Snake and dashed home in the dead of night. What was I thinking? Far away, on a lonely island in the Kanto region, something else was stirring. Owen stood in the heart of the castle-like laboratory, a single torchlight flickering against the polished stone walls. In his hand, he held a stack of letters, human correspondence, each one asking the same question in different words. What is the meaning of Pokemon's existence? He skimmed the replies. Battle. Of course it's battle. I crave the glory and the rush when Pokemon fight. I want you to help me become the most powerful trainer in the world. I just love Pokemon and want them always by my side. Dragonite is huge. Can you make her mine? With every new envelope, Owen's expression grew colder. Nearly every letter tied Pokemon to one thing: conflict, conquest, and greed. This was the same narrow-minded ambition he'd seen in Team Rocket. Was war and plunder truly all humanity could envision for Pokemon? Anger coiled in Owen's chest, and without warning, his psychic power burst free. The castle trembled, the island shivered beneath its foundations, and the sky turned as dark as ink. Furious waves rose in the surrounding sea, sending salty spray crashing against the cliffs below. So this is why I was created, Owen murmured, voice low and bitter. For war and spoil? Very well. He let the storm of power build, ready to show the world there was more to Pokemon than just bloodshed. Then I'll stir things up. Woo! At that moment, Dragonite swooped in, carrying a satchel in one hand and clutching a small pouch in the other. Owen recognized it immediately. The energy cube he had given the Dragonite, one last cube that his companion clearly didn't want to part with. Is this the last delivery? Owen asked coolly. Mewtwo, who had been fuming just moments before, calmed himself and used telekinesis to lift the pouch from Dragonite's grip. He began sorting through the stacks of envelopes scattered across the table, his attention split. But he couldn't help noticing Dragonite's anxious eyes fixed on the pouch. What are you hiding? Mewtwo demanded. Dragonite let out a soft woo and tried to slip the bag behind his back. His stubby arms, however, fell far too short to conceal anything. The more Dragonite fumbled, the more Mewtwo's suspicions grew. With a single thought, he wrenched the pouch away. Dragonite's shoulders slumped. He just gorged himself on treats. Another fight over a lone energy cube was far from worth it. Mewtwo untied the pouch and pulled out the shimmering cube. He raised an eyebrow. Why would Dragonite try to hide this? The cube hovered in the air, glowing faintly. Unconcerned about any toxins it might contain, Mewtwo sank his teeth into it. As the cube's power surged through him, Mewtwo's eyes narrowed. Whatever was hidden in that bag, it was far more important than any ordinary energy snack. Mewtwo was chewing thoughtfully on the small energy cube when all at once his eyes brightened. Huh? He murmured, the tension draining from his features. With a single swallow, he finished the cube and, sounding almost casual, asked, Where did this come from? Dragonite, still smarting from being sidelined, winced but pointed with a claw toward a sealed envelope lying nearby. Mewtwo reached out, picked it up, and turned it over in his hands. He paused, studying the paper, then slid it open and read. One sentence was all it contained, but those few words held such weight that it took him several minutes to absorb their meaning. When he finally looked up, a trace of relief and quiet satisfaction had replaced his previous intensity. After all this time, he whispered, I finally have the answer I've been searching for. Dragonite watched him in stunned silence. It knew how long Mewtwo had pursued this truth, how he had broken into Team Rocket's strongholds to free countless Pokemon and brought them here just so he could dispatch letters into the human world. He had written again and again, never receiving a reply that truly spoke to him, until now. At last, the answer was in his hands. Dragonite hesitated for a moment, then relayed Owen's words. Mewtwo listened in silence. After a beat, an amused smile spread across his face, and he broke into laughter. Ha! You want me to live an ordinary life, to experience what it's like to be bonded with humans in their everyday world? He waved a hand dismissively. Very well. I'll indulge you, and we'll see if you can truly grasp that bond. The next morning, Owen awoke to the familiar chime of the system alert. Congratulations! You have raised Mewtwo's affinity from 40% to 40%. Rewards granted. 5 bags of special-grade golden berries. 1 rare candy, 1 revived shard, can restore a fainted Pokemon before its body decays. One limit break potion allows a Pokémon to surpass its own limits. Despite the tempting haul, Owen barely registered it. His attention was fixed instead on the emerald green Superior coiled at the edge of the clearing. The serpent rose its head and gave a low, expectant hiss. "Tang! Tang!" it murmured, as if to say, "Now the real test begins." Chapter 32. The whole mess had actually started the night before. Ordinary Pokeballs aren't completely soundproof or airtight, so when Owen sealed Green Ivy Snake inside, the serpent still picked up on Dragonite's powerful aura right outside. It didn't take long for him to guess why Owen had stowed him away in the first place. Owen was spooked by Dragonite and wanted to keep his snake safe. When Owen got home after dusk, Green Ivy Snake was waiting. He hauled Owen off to what could only be called a meeting, pacing back and forth and tossing accusatory glances. "You really locked me up in a Pokeball at a time like that?" he hissed. "Am I not your partner? Shouldn't I be the one watching your back?" That fury didn't cool until dawn broke. Owen, bleary-eyed and apologetic, held up 4 fingers in surrender. Okay, I swear this is the last time I put you away." "Tang, Tang." Green Ivy Snake rolled his eyes, then let out a long exhale. At that, he nodded, a grudging pardon, at least for now. Relief flooded Owen. Finally free of the snake's reproach, he turned his attention to the system's latest rewards, a vial of holy ash and an individual value breakthrough potion. Not bad at all. As Owen pocketed the items, he couldn't shake the feeling that, despite the drama, tonight's encounter with Dragonite had been just the beginning of something much bigger. Owen swallowed hard, and his heart still racing. He'd expected some acknowledgement from Mewtwo after reading his message, but nothing could have prepared him for this. An individual value breakthrough potion, freely offered. He couldn't help the small sigh of wonder that escaped him. "I wouldn't mind keeping this for myself," he admitted under his breath. With a soft pop, a slender glass vial brimming with milky white liquid appeared in his palm. The moment Owen removed the cork, a subtly intoxicating fragrance curled through the air, tinged with something almost sweet. He turned to his partner. "Greenvine Snake, here. This is your reward. Think of it as a special treat." The serpent's emerald eyes narrowed suspiciously at the vial, convinced Owen was pulling a prank. Yet trusting him implicitly, it coiled around the bottle, lifted it to its lips, and drained the contents in a single gulp. "Huh?" Greenvine Snake blinked, its red tongue flicking out. "This is even tastier than candy." As the potion slid down its throat, a powerful warmth blossomed through its entire body. Muscles tingled, senses sharpened, and the snake felt an exhilarating rush of strength. Delighted, it leaned forward and licked the last droplets from the glass vial, clearly thrilled with its new and unexpected gift. Chapter title: Green Vine Snake. A holographic display flickered to life above Owen's wrist-mounted device, the Exploration Eye's signature. Data scrolled across the screen. Species: grass snake. Pokémon Green Vine Snake, gender female. Role: rival rank, gold individual values. HP 25 plus 2, attack 20 plus 1 is 8 at 26 5. Defense 24 2, speed 30, effective level range 23-26. Owen smiled, impressed. These IVs and that boosted speed in particular were leagues above a typical wild Pokémon. He deliberately used the enhancement on her rather than on Melodic. Melodic already wielded the Water Stone and the Ocean Crystal. He prided himself on treating his team equally. "Lodo," he said, summoning his Rotom's attention. "Anything going on outside?" "Rotom reminds you someone's waiting at the door, Master," came the electronic reply from his phone mode companion. "Already?" Owen glanced at the small clock on his desk. 6 o'clock in the morning, a full day before his bus to Wutong City departed. Yesterday's victory must have made waves far wider than he'd expected. "All right, I'm coming," he said, rising from his chair. Lodo buzzed in midair, its red glow pulsating. Owen took a deep breath. Whoever was out there was here early, and he'd better be ready. Owen sat on the edge of his bed, marveling at the little electric sprite hovering a stain above his phone. Its form was wispy and blue, completely genderless, yet brimming with energy. Ever since he'd bought this Rotom yesterday, his world had gotten a lot more convenient. "Attached to your phone, I've granted you unrestricted, firewall-free access to any network information in real time," Rotom purred, its voice soft and electronic. "But that's not all. I can slip out of your phone and inhabit other devices, temporarily adopting new elemental properties. For instance, link me to your refrigerator and I'll handle the cooling myself, becoming ice electric. Plug me into the washing machine and I'll tackle the laundry as water electric. Rotom's electric eyes flickered with pride as it continued. Your performance in yesterday's Baby Cup was so spectacular. Many short video creators have already posted highlights on Douyin. Would you like me to pull them up? Yeah, let me see, Owen said, already reaching for his phone. He jumped to his feet and hurried down the stairs toward the bathroom. One of the biggest reasons he'd invested in Rotom wasn't just for streaming data or elemental assistance. It was the way the little spirit took initiative, always ready to introduce new uses and lend a hand. With Rotom by his side, Owen felt he could tackle anything the day threw at him. Okay, Master. Rotom instantly projected the phone's screen into midair. On it, a crisp video played, Owen calmly guiding the vine snake through each step needed to purge the dragon's trapped energy. Owen stared at the upload timestamp last night and then at the stats. Over 100,000 likes, tens of thousands of comments. Even if only 1 in 10 viewers clicked like, that still meant 1 million views. Shall I open the comments? Rotom asked. Do it, Owen replied, his heart pounding. He swiped to unveil the flood of messages. What the heck? Incredible. Totally staged. I've studied breeding techniques for years and never heard of such a young advanced breeder. You guys are clueless. This was posted by the official Wutong City TV channel. How's it fake? That method is off the charts. Owen's head reeled as comments poured in faster than he could read. It seemed his demonstration had gone viral overnight, and the world was watching. Whether he was channeling the dragon's energy with surgical precision or instantly mending his Pokemon's wounds mid-battle, Owen's control was flawless. Even the vine snake sent by the Alliance boasted top-tier credentials. Wait, are they really dispatching a vine snake next? Breeder Qinglu, is that you approving this? And Red, you left that staggering comment on my highlight video? You've been watching me compete? On the livestream chat, a user named Charizard burst out. Red, friends, it really is him. Red in the flesh, woo woo woo. I've dreamed my whole life of seeing a Scarlet Charizard. Give me that chance. Owen scrolled through the flood of responses and let out a long, steady breath. By and large, viewers were praising his strategy and composure. Only a few trolls were spouting nonsense. What astonished him most, though, was that both Breeder Qinglu and Champion Red had noticed him. He clicked over to their profiles, tens of millions of followers each. No question, these were the genuine articles. After ending the stream, Owen washed his face at the sink. As the cool water hit his skin, a plan began to take shape in his mind. With this massive wave of attention focused on him, he might as well capitalize on it by building up his own Douyin account. Chapter 33. I'm coming. Hold on. After a quick wash, Owen bolted for the door. Rotom, start recording. Make sure you get everything. Rotom, the electric Pokémon chirped as its camera lens unfolded. Owen had big plans for his Douyin account, and today's grand opening was the perfect content. He slid the door open to find a surging crowd. It wasn't even 6 in the morning, yet dozens of curious onlookers were already seated on the steps and sprawled along the bluestone path. A few were busy chatting into their phones, selfie sticks at the ready. Here we are at last, a young man with a selfie stick crowed. Wutong Town's newest cultivation house is finally opening. Let's see what makes this little shop so special. Owen cleared his throat. Everyone, please wait just a moment. He retrieved a hand-painted wooden sign from behind the doorway and nailed it into place. Energy cubes are limited to 3 per person, per day. Stepping back, Owen exhaled. He knew this rule was the only way to keep the crowd in check, and his big opening from turning into chaos. Owen peered anxiously through the shop window at the growing crowd. If he didn't enforce a limit, the energy cubes he'd spent all night preparing would be snapped up before the door even opened. What he really wanted was for as many Pokémon as possible to sample his creation. Every delighted new creature might bring special rewards. Just then, the first young man in line hesitated at the threshold. He glanced back over his shoulder. Hey boss, he called out. You just opened and already set a purchase limit? Aren't you worried nobody will bother buying from a store with rules like that? A ripple of agreement ran through the customers behind him. It wasn't unusual for a small new shop to forgo flashy promotions, but posting restrictions before anyone had even tried the product felt unfriendly. Owen stepped forward, hands raised in a placating gesture. I'm sorry. I truly didn't expect such a crowd on day one, and I only had time to make a small batch last night. I want every trainer and Pokémon here to get a taste, so I've set a per-person limit. That way, no one goes home empty-handed. He offered them his warmest smile. Please bear with me. After all, don't hit a smiling person, right? His genuine apology and easy humor disarmed the crowd. The frowns melted away, replaced by nods of reluctant understanding, and one by one they stepped forward to place their orders. Owen, a handsome 17-year-old trainer, stepped into the breeding center. The layout was simple, glass display cases, much like those you'd find in a bakery, each compartment filled with a different type of energy cube, and a few sample cubes resting atop the counters. Along the walls, neatly arranged fruit and vegetables, spicy berries, peaches, oranges, and fresh greens Owen himself had harvested from his cultivation garden, completed the modest selection. As one of the town's earliest cultivation shops, its inventory was necessarily limited. A hushed voice drifted from nearby. Wow, look at those energy cubes. Their colors are so vivid, and they seem firm yet springy, but the real test will be how your Pokémon responds to them. One customer, eyes on a luminous blue cube, turned to Owen. Manager, may I try this sample? Owen offered a nod. Go ahead. Just keep in mind, if your Pokémon's too large, it's best not to release it inside. The young man smiled, retrieved a Pokéball, and gave it a firm tap. In an instant, a massive Beedrill buzzed into the room, its wings humming with barely contained energy. Owen watched as every eye in the clearing fixated on his invention, the physical energy cube. Pokémon, of course, have an uncanny instinct for judging the nutritional, or in this case energizing value of anything they consume. He dropped a cube onto a stump. The enormous Beedrill, its wings vibrating in anticipation, extended a needle-sharp stinger, skewered the cube, and inhaled it in one go. For a heartbeat, the forest fell silent. Only the steady thrum of Beedrill's wings remained. Owen's heart skipped. What's wrong, girl? Her trainer mumbled, frowning. Then, as if triggered by some invisible mechanism, Owen heard it clearly in his mind. Congratulations. Pleasure value increased from 20% to 60%. Rewards unlocked. 10 bags of golden Keela, 3 magic candies, 1 dragon clear fruit. The massive insect flexed its wings, satisfaction practically radiating off its striped carapace. It turned to its trainer, tapped Owen's ankle with a stinger, then pointed emphatically at the empty stump where the cube had been. It was the same look a girlfriend gives her boyfriend at a fruit stand when she spots a perfect watermelon and whispers, "Buy it, please?" Owen couldn't suppress a grin. The message was obvious. Don't leave without making another cube. Owen held up his phone on a selfie stick, angling the camera toward his Beedrill. The bug Pokémon hovered eagerly, then snatched a glowing cube and nibbled at it. It tastes incredible, exclaimed the young trainer, recording the scene. Your Beedrill really loves these. Owen gave a knowing smile. These are called physical energy cubes. They restore a Pokémon's stamina after battle. I'll buy one, and do a review for my followers, the trainer said. Each cube is 1,000 Pokédollars, Owen replied matter-of-factly. The trainer blinked. 1,000? They're only about £1 each and last at most 3 days. That's steep. Owen shrugged. It's a premium formula. If it really speeds recovery, long-term travelers will find it invaluable. The trainer hesitated, then nodded. All right, weigh me one. Within minutes, he slipped the cube into his bag and stepped out of Owen's small breeding shop with his camera still rolling. If the cube failed to live up to its promise, he'd be back in half an hour, ready to expose the truth and ride the wave of new traffic to his channel. Owen watched as the other trainers called out their Pokémon one by one. Each Pokémon sniffed at the sample energy cube and, approvingly, nudged it toward its trainer. Smiling, the trainers purchased cubes for their partners, some buying 2, some 3, eager to see the effect on their Pokémon. It was still early. Only a handful of customers had trickled in before 8 o'clock. But as the morning brightened, more and more people arrived. A few paused at the side stand to pick out fresh vegetables, convinced they'd pair nicely with the energy cubes. By 9:30 a.m., Owen glanced around in astonishment. Every last cube on the shelves was gone. Just then the doors swung open, and a slightly flustered figure hurried inside. It was the young reporter who'd sampled Owen's energy cube earlier in the day, her eyes wide as she took in the empty display. Chapter 34. Is that all you've got? Any more energy cubes left? Owen burst through the door, his eyes bright with anticipation. As a professional energy cube tester and live streamer, he'd just wrapped up an experiment on his Beedrill. He drained over half its energy, then fed it these new cubes. In under 3 minutes, the wasp Pokémon was back to full strength, something the D-grade cubes from the Dongwa Alliance, which cost 3,000 credits apiece, could never achieve. Even better, these units didn't trigger the usual drug resistance. He spent the next hour running the same trial on his second partner, Snorlax. Time after time, the results were identical: rapid energy restoration and a deep sense of satiety. With every cube they consumed, Bentley's yawns turned to wide-eyed excitement, and Snorlax went from sluggish to spry. Owen felt like he'd struck gold. Raising a Snorlax was expensive under the best of circumstances. These cubes could cut costs and training time in half. Leaning over the counter, he pressed the shopkeeper with a grin. "I'll take every cube you have. Name your price." Behind him, his camera crew clicked away, capturing every triumphant moment. Owen knew this footage would go viral. An energy cube line that actually worked, outpacing the big brand D-grades. His followers would eat it up, and his bank account would thank him. As the shopkeeper disappeared into the back room, Owen watched his two Pokémon, already restless at the thought of more cubes. In a world where every advantage counted, this discovery might just be the breakthrough he'd been waiting for. Chapter 1. The First Drop. Owen stared at the clock. 2 o'clock sharp. After 6 months of holding on to his stash, scraping together every penny he had, even sacrificing the down payment on a car, today was launch day. He'd poured his life savings into these rare energy cubes, convinced this drop would change everything. "Sorry, everyone. Today's allocation is completely sold out," Owen called out, voice trembling. He flipped his "Limit 3 per person" sign over to reveal a bright red "Sold Out" placard. A disappointed murmur rippled through the line of customers. One man scoffed loudly. 2 hours and it's all gone? Come on." Owen winced, recognizing the voice. Luan Ming, the original live stream host who'd made these cubes famous, stood with arms crossed, peering into the empty glass display. "I'm really sorry," Owen said, stepping forward. "This is our very first drop, and I wildly underestimated demand. Please, take these spicy fruit snacks on the house." He scooped a handful of fiery, chili-coated fruit into a plastic bag and offered it to Luan Ming. The anchor took it without a word, his expression unreadable. As Luan Ming melted back into the crowd, Owen felt a sharp pang of regret. Had he known they'd vanish in under 2 hours, he would have reserved the full 3-cube limit for himself. But there'd be another shipment tomorrow. He promised himself he'd be first in line at dawn, no more chance meetings with sold-out signs. Owen let out a relieved sigh as the afternoon sun climbed higher and the last of his video-driven customers drifted away. Convinced that no one else would come by for a while, he quietly locked the front door and drew the curtains across the French windows. Even if someone knocked again, he wouldn't answer. Teng, Teng. His green vine snake, affectionately nicknamed Teng Teng, gave a soft, pleading hiss. Not all of Owen's visitors had come for energy cubes. A few had been lured by the promise of seeing his rare Pokémon, and they'd begged to pet Teng Teng on sight. Owen had politely refused every time. "Heh," Owen chuckled, crouching beside the coil of emerald scales. "Why don't you slip up to the treehouse tomorrow, huh?" He scratched the creature behind its head, then froze, careful to back away the instant he saw it tense. Owen stood and turned to his computer terminal to tally today's haul. The system notification chimes were still pinging nonstop. Each time a Pokémon happily consumed an energy cube, the system registered it. With a quick click, Owen muted the alerts. His inventory now read over 300 packs of energy cubes and more than 60 rare candies, and those numbers were still climbing. Satisfied, Owen leaned back in his chair, ready for whatever came next. Owen scrolled through the list of special rewards with keen interest. Earth and Sand Ore, 5. Special Scale Fruit, 3. Azure Dragon Fruit, 2. D-Rank Firestone, 1. Plus more than 20 other rare items. He nodded appreciatively, but one entry made his heart beat faster. Dragon Fire Fruit Tree Seeds. According to the description, these seeds must be sown on land with exceptionally high energy. In 3 years, they'll sprout into seedlings. In 10 years, they'll grow into full trees. And only after 30 years will they bear their prized fruit. Owen's eyes lit up. Dragonfire fruit is indispensable for crafting specialized energy blocks, and a 30-year maturation period didn't deter him in the slightest. He reminded himself that the system had already rewarded him with 5 special-grade Jinkela not long ago, so this felt like just the next step on his path. Beyond the system's bounty, Owen still had today's sales to count. He summoned Rotom and asked, "Rotom, what's our total turnover this morning?" "Lodo," Rotom chirped cheerfully. 185,000 credits. Owen drew in a slow breath, the excitement and potential of that prize, and the seeds, settling firmly in his chest. Owen tapped his fingers on the edge of his desk, staring in disbelief at the ledger on his tablet. Today's energy block production had cost him barely a few thousand yuan in raw materials, most of which he'd picked up with supermarket gift cards. In other words, the 180,000 yuan credited to his account was almost pure profit. He leaned back. For once, money didn't feel like a problem. In the Donghua Alliance, trainers who fielded 3 high-level Pokémon typically needed at least 300,000 yuan just to cover upkeep and battle fees. That kind of sum was more than most people earned in an entire year. Owen let out a low whistle. "All right," he muttered. "No need to overthink it. Let's get those fruit trees planted." He shut the finance app and switched his focus to the agricultural module of his system. Having reliable food sources was a sturdy foundation, but he knew his real passions lay elsewhere. He still needed to train his Pokémon regularly. Take Ivy, his green ivy snake, for instance. It craved the thrill of competition. Whenever he had the chance, Owen planned to accept part-time gigs as a battle trainer just to keep Ivy's reflexes sharp. One more thing weighed on his mind, his parents' disappearance. Someday, when he'd grown stronger and had both the resources and connections, he would investigate what really happened. For now, he satisfied himself with the knowledge that his father Scyther, long retired from the gym circuit in Wutong City, had once ranked among its very best challengers. He shook his head and smiled. There was plenty to do and plenty to achieve. With a solid bankroll and a team hungry for battle, Owen felt ready to take the next step. Owen's mind churned as he walked down the dusty path. Logically, whatever creature he'd last seen shouldn't have vanished so completely in ordinary wilderness, certainly not without leaving even a scrap of a message. Alive or dead, he at least deserved some sign of where it had gone. Owen let out a long, restless sigh. He tightened his grip on the woven basket in his hand, laden with freshly picked fruits and vegetables, and headed toward Grandpa Chin's farmhouse. He'd borrowed the Chin family's sand shrew to help him till the soil for planting, an arrangement that had worked so well he'd briefly entertained the idea of buying his own. But he'd worried the gentle sand shrew might feel abandoned if he brought home a companion, so he'd dropped the notion. Better to keep things simple. True to form, the sand shrew had been eager to help. With boundless energy, it had scratched and turned the earth until it was soft and ready for seed. As Owen approached the front porch, he saw Grandpa Chin emerging with a curious look on his face. "Good morning, Owen," Grandpa Chin called, taking the basket. He peered inside. My, these are already ripe? Your garden must be miraculous this season." Owen offered a modest shrug. "I actually prepared the plot a few days ago," he explained, "and I had a little help from my green vine snake friend. Between the two of us, we managed to speed things up." Grandpa Chin nodded, still impressed. "Well, I'll be sure to share these with the neighbors. They'll be thrilled." Owen forced a smile, though thoughts of the missing creature tugged at him. But for today, at least, the fields were fruitful, and hope, he reminded himself, often sprouts when you least expect it. Grandpa Chin didn't dwell on it. He simply found the elves to be truly marvelous creatures. Then he sighed again and said, "It's a shame that in my day, Elf studies weren't anywhere near as popular as they are now. Chapter 35. Owen paused at the edge of the orchard, struck by the sudden rush of Pokémon auras washing over him. Of course, he felt Milotic's presence straight away, but mingled with it were several others. Following the invisible trails, he soon spotted 3 Rattata, a Pidgeot, and a Spearow huddled together beside the watering reservoir, their fur and feathers plastered with droplets. Evidently, Milotic had used water gun to drench them. As Owen stepped closer, a gleaming shape darted beneath the cascade of water and burst through the surface, scales refracting the afternoon sun. Milotic let out a delighted cry. "Yoo-hoo!" Owen smiled. "What's going on here?" Even though he suspected he already knew the answer, he asked anyway. Courteous conversation always helped deepen his bond with his team. Since evolving into Milotic, their friendship had only grown stronger, and its affection level now read 99. Milotic bobbed its head excitedly, then stuttered over its words. Yo, those little Rattata were trying to steal the spicy fruit over there." Owen nodded, glancing at the shivering trio. "I see. Thank you for defending our harvest, especially in such style." Milotic quivered in pride, water droplets dancing along its sleek body. Owen reached into his pack, producing a handful of fresh berry treats. He scattered them in front of the Rattata, the Pidgeot, and the Spearow. As they hungrily began to nibble, Owen turned back to his loyal Milotic. "Well done," he said softly. Milotic's eyes shone, its elegant tail rippling in the sunshine. Together, trainer and Pokémon surveyed the orchard, united, vigilant, and ready for whatever challenge might come next. Owen leaned forward, curiosity bright in his eyes. "Well, what happened next?" Milotic bobbed its head and let out a soft, rushing yo-yo. As if gathering its thoughts, the serpentine Pokémon spoke again, more clearly this time. "Yo, I shot them down. Those 2 flying Pokémon came for our spicy fruit, and that Pidgeot swooped in after spotting the little Rattatas beneath the tree." Owen nodded, absorbing the report. He glanced at the 3 Rattata scurrying at the base of the fruit tree, each around level 11 to 13, and then up at the nearby Spearow, which looked about level 15 to 17. Above them circled a proud Pidgeot, surely closer to level 17 or 19. With those numbers, it made perfect sense that Milotic had driven them off. Then Menshau's voice wavered in Owen's mind. An anxious, almost panicked, yo. Owen frowned. "You said they came to steal fruit?" Milotic dipped its head apologetically. "Yo, they got away with a few." A knot formed in Owen's stomach. He reached out and gently laid a hand on Milotic's crest. Faint green energy, his verdant aura, flowed from his palm, enfolding his Pokémon in a soothing warmth. The tension melted from Milotic's body, and its deep blue eyes softened with relief. "You did the right thing," Owen murmured. "You protected our food. There's no shame in a little gardening defense." Milotic let out a soft, contented hum. Owen straightened up, brushing leaves and fallen twigs from his jacket. "All right," he said, voice steady. "Let's collect what's left of those fruits and prepare for any more unwelcome visitors. Mienshao, Milotic, team up with me." With renewed confidence, the 3 friends set about harvesting the remaining spicy fruit, each ready to stand guard against whoever might dare to try their luck next. Owen watched Milotic's silvery eyes intently. Ever since he'd captured the magnificent water-type Pokémon, its affection for him had climbed steadily, but now it stood at the absolute peak, 100. He knelt beside the gentle serpent, drawing on the soothing power of his evergreen ability. Laying a hand against Milotic's smooth scales, he spoke softly. "Don't worry, Milotic. Just do your best. A few spoiled berries, or even the loss of this entire plantation, couldn't matter less than you do." To Owen, this land was replaceable. If a rampaging legendary beast tore the grove apart tomorrow, he could always find fresh soil, replant the crops, and reopen his neighborhood cultivation house. But Milotic was irreplaceable. It was one of the few true companions he'd found in this world worth fighting for. At Owen's words, Milotic let out a trembling call, soft, beautiful, almost like a song of relief. For a moment, its luminous gaze went blank. Then 2 crystalline tears traced down its cheeks, catching the afternoon light. A gentle chime echoed in Owen's mind. System notification. "Congratulations, trainer. Milotic's affection has reached 100. Award granted, silver feather." Description. A single plume from Lugia, the legendary lord of ocean currents. When equipped by Psychic or Flying-type Pokémon, it raises special attack by 15 to 50%, usable by gym stage and above. Warmth spread through Owen's chest as the feather materialized in his hand, an elegant, iridescent quill that shimmered like dawn on the ocean. Melodic's heartfelt emotion had forged a bond deeper than words, and the silver feather stood as proof that together they were unstoppable. Owen gave a wry smile and a soft sigh. Pokémon really were simple creatures. "All right, go on back," he told his Melodic, patting the sleek water serpent on the head. Melodic shimmered happily and swam off toward its Pokeball. Owen turned to survey the defeated foes. The three Rattata lay unconscious where they'd fallen, and both the Spearow and Pidgeot sagged on the ground, wings drenched and tired from Melodic's pounding water gun attack. It was clear they'd tried to escape, only to be knocked back each time. Calmly, Owen retrieved 3 Pokeballs and knocked them open, recalling the Rattata one by one. Then he faced the 2 remaining flyers. "Spearow!" At his command, the Spearow's eyes blazed with fury. It flapped its wings so fast the air whistled, readying itself for another desperate strike. But before the bird could lift off, Owen sprang forward and caught both wings in a firm grip. No matter how it thrashed, it couldn't break free. Even the little grass-type serpent lurking behind Spearow froze, stunned by Owen's speed and control. Owen gave the Spearow a steady look. "You're coming with me too," he said, already reaching for another Pokeball. Owen watched as his trainer cuffed the struggling Spearow and murmured, "You're so reckless, stealing food and attacking people." He couldn't help a wry smile. He'd actually been planning to keep whichever bird he caught, Spearow or its evolution, Pidgeot, as an aerial scout for the plantation, covering the marshes and riverbanks Melodic couldn't reach. But this Spearow was far too aggressive. Owen sealed it away in a Pokeball and turned his attention to the sleek Pidgeot perched above him. A quick scan of the floating data confirmed his hopes. Species, Pidgeot, male. Ability, Keen Eye, Rarity, Blue. IVs, HP 21, AC 21, Spy AC 18, Def 17, Def 17, Speed 23. Level 17 to 19. Moves Gust, Quick Attack, Agility, Wing Attack, Air Cutter, Steel Wing. Friendship 0, still cautious of humans. Enjoyment, nice 5, still spooked by a close call with a Rattata in human territory. Not bad at all, Owen thought. The bird tilted its head, feathers ruffling in the breeze, and let out a calm, "Bibby?" A far cry from the Spearow's temper. Grinning, Owen raised his Pokeball and prepared to add Pidgeot to his team. It was exactly the kind of reliable eyes in the sky he'd been looking for. Owen watched the sky and spotted Pipey, the small bird-like Pokemon, hovering overhead. "Bibi, Bibi," it cried, wings fluttering wildly as it dove, not toward his flourishing crops, but at the cluster of Rattata scurrying along the field's edge. He shook his head, grinning. "I know what you're after." In the wild, Pee-Pee occasionally preys on Rattata. That this one had followed him from the Pokémon world into the human realm was proof of its desperate hunger. Reaching into his pack, Owen pulled out a physical energy cube. He activated his Evergreen ability, sending a gentle pulse of energy toward the bird. "Pee-Pee, how would you like to stay here with me? I'll take care of your food and shelter. In return, just keep watch over the plantation. If any Rattata try to sneak in, chase them away." Pee-Pee fluttered its head, considering for a moment, then let out a decisive "Bibi." Owen tucked the energy cube back into his pack with a satisfied smile. With Pee-Pee on guard, his crops would finally be safe, and whatever Rattata they intercepted could be sold to the Alliance for extra income. Chapter 36. Owen. Pee-Pee's eyes locked onto the energy cube in Owen's hand, and the tip of his beak glistened with excitement. Swallowing his nerves, he blurted out the question he'd been holding back. "Can you help me become stronger?" Owen cocked his head in surprise. "Stronger? What do you have in mind, Pee-Pee? How strong do you want to be?" A flash of anger crossed Pee-Pee's face. "There's a Spearow in the forest that just evolved into a toucan. It drove us out of our territory and injured many of our kin. Now we're barely scraping by." He paced back and forth, feathers ruffling with indignation. Owen considered the problem. A newly evolved toucan would be roughly gym-level strength, far beyond anything grown under his orchard's usual training regimen. Still, he had faith in Pee-Pee's potential. "All right," Owen said at last. "I'll help you. Eat this." He produced a shiny magical candy from his satchel and held it out. Pee-Pee didn't hesitate for a second. He grabbed the candy, swallowed it whole, and felt invigorating energy surge through his muscles and wings. He turned to Owen, eyes bright with renewed confidence. "I'm ready," Peepee chirped, flexing his wings. "We'll take back our home." Owen let out a soft sigh. That was far too easy. He met the Pidgeot's panicked gaze. "Humans honor our word. When I promise you something, it's yours. And when I forbid something, you stay away. From now on, you'll be the guardian of this plantation. If you're hungry, feel free to swoop down and pick whatever you like. Your main duty is to keep pests like Rattata out of the crops." With that, Owen tapped into the Evergreen force. Tiny motes of green light drifted down and enveloped the Pidgeot, knitting up every bruise and cut left by the Melodic's water gun in just seconds. It was Owen's first time using the Force's healing ability, and its power surpassed all his expectations. The Pidgeot stared at its flawless feathers in astonishment, then gave a tentative flap before soaring into the sky. Owen didn't bother stopping it. He knew the true key to the bird's loyalty lay in the magical candy he'd given it, and that was more than enough to ensure it would stay. Notification: your Pidgeot's happiness has risen from 10% to 60%. Rewards earned: 10 rare candy bags, 3 magic candies, 1 quick movement skill disc. Owen watched as his Pidgeot circled overhead, then landed atop a tall pine just beyond the edge of his new plantation. It swept the landscape with sharp eyes, alert to every detail. Water. Checked. Land. Checked. Air. Checked, Owen muttered to himself. He clicked his tongue and studied the terrain. It was time to decide where to plant the fruit tree seeds he'd acquired. An idea formed quickly. He'd line the perimeter fence with orange trees. Their dense foliage would obscure prying eyes, and as a bonus, their fruit provided a potent health boost to any Pokémon that sampled them. Next, he marked the roadside for the pomelo trees. They grew taller and cast generous shade, perfect for cooling off travelers or his own team on hot summer days. Though pomelos yielded more fruit each season, their restorative power was milder than that of oranges, making them ideal for everyday use. Finally, Owen strode down to the small reservoir at the heart of the estate. There, he knelt and gently pressed the dragonfire fruit seed into the damp soil. With plenty of water and sunlight, this rare, fiery berry would thrive, and its extraordinary energy boost would be well worth the wait. Satisfied, Owen stood back to admire his planned layout. A protective, life-restoring belt of oranges, a plentiful, cooling row of pomelos, and the prized dragonfire fruit thriving by the water. His plantation was off to a strong start. Owen glanced over the freshly selected ridge and reached into his pack, pulling out 2 bright, spicy fruits. He held them out to his sandshrew. "Here, please dig holes exactly where I've marked." "Dig!" the sandshrew chirped eagerly. It accepted the fruits, placed them carefully at the ridge's edge, and then set to work. Scrab, bling into the earth at each of Owen's markers. Only after it had finished all the holes did it turn back to savor its well-earned snack. While Sandshrew munched, Owen retrieved a dozen young saplings, half pomelo, half orange, from his storage orb. He knelt beside each newly dug hole and planted the trees one by one, pressing soil firmly around their delicate roots. All the while, Melodic floated nearby, curling its long neck to spray a gentle mist of water. The fine droplets settled on the saplings, giving each a vital first drink. When the last tree was in place, Owen patted Sandshrew on the head. "Great work. Now, Diglett, I need you over here." He called to his little mole Pokémon, which popped up through the soil at his feet. With a quick command, he sent Diglett to the next field. There, the industrious mole burrowed back and forth, turning over rich earth to prepare a fresh bed for Owen's next crop. Finally, Owen knelt in the newly plowed furrows and carefully sowed rows of watermelon seeds. He pressed each one lightly into the ground, then stood back to admire the teamwork that had brought this small farm to life. Sandshrew's precise holes, Melodic's nurturing sprays, Diglett's thorough plowing, and Owen's own steady hands guiding the work. A gentle breeze carried the promise of growth across the ridge, and Owen allowed himself a satisfied smile. The orchard and watermelon patch were off to a perfect start. Owen held out a large bag of spicy fruits to the sand mole, whose eyes gleamed with excitement. "If you ever run out," he said with a grin, "just come by the cultivation house." The little creature chattered happily in response. Turning back to his real task, Owen retrieved the special-grade Jinkela fertilizer for the dragonfire fruits by the reservoir. He'd left only the ordinary formula on display. This potent variant was too valuable to share. After all, special-grade Jinkela can boost plant growth efficiency by 300 to 1,000 times. Even at its lowest estimate, a single day's effect rivals an entire year of natural growth. Beneath the water's surface, a school of curious menas darted around the reservoir's edge as Owen dug a shallow pit. He dropped in the dragonfire fruit seeds, lightly covered them with soil, then carefully sprinkled the glinting gold granules of special-grade Jinkela over the spot. The fertilizer vanished on contact, absorbed so quickly that nothing remained on the surface. Owen glanced at the green vine snake coiled nearby and offered a satisfied nod. "All set," he said. "Let's see how fast these sprout." "Just wait a month at most, and you'll be blessed," Owen said with a grin. "Tang tang," the green vine snake hissed, its golden eyes flicking toward the freshly buried seeds. "In a month, you'll understand," Owen replied. He kept the details to himself for now. There was no point revealing everything yet. After all, Tang Tang's nature was to chirp the opposite of what he meant, and that wouldn't help at all. Silence, for the moment, was the kinder choice. The snake let out a soft, puzzled hiss, its body coiling in mild frustration. Beneath its scales, curiosity churned. Was Owen being kind, teasing, or simply secretive? Owen reached into his jacket and produced a long, prismatic crystal that glowed with pale blue light. Energy rippled across its surface, a clear sign of its S-rank status. This was no ordinary gem, but an ocean crystal, the very heart of the legendary Ocean Temple's power. "Mianshao, over here," Owen called, pointing to the shallow reservoir at their feet. "Place this in the center and cover it with soil." With a chirping cry, Mianshao surfaced, gently grasped the crystal in its beak, and dove beneath the water once more, ready to do Owen's bidding. As soon as Owen let the ocean crystal slip beneath the reservoir's surface, the entire pool shimmered with a soft, radiant glow. Pulses of vibrant energy rippled outward until the crystal came to rest in the mud below. Owen nodded to himself. With the ocean crystal in place, the water here would gradually become rich with life-giving energy, an ideal supplement for Mianshao's development. He glanced over at Melodic, whose long, serpentine form lay curled at the water's edge. The Pokemon's eyes were half-closed in bliss, and a contented sigh escaped its lips. You, it murmured, as though the feeling were almost too wonderful to believe. Owen reached into his pack and withdrew a second water stone, its surface glinting in the afternoon sun. "Here, you can absorb this one, too." Melodic trembled the instant it sensed the gift, as if tears of relief welled in its eyes. Having lived in murky swamps and mud since it was young, it had never known such kindness. Owen knelt beside it and gently stroked its head. "You've been through enough. From now on, your life will only get better." With Melodic safely settled in its newly enchanted home, Owen stood and surveyed the clearing. A thick mat of grass had already begun to reclaim the area around the reservoir. He let out a low sigh, cinched the straps of his belt, and drew his scythe. "All right," he muttered. "Next up, pruning this jungle." And with that, he stepped forward to begin the work. Owen's heart throbbed with a fierce desire to raise a psychic-type Pokémon. Failing that, a bug and flying-type mantis would do. At least it wouldn't mean spending his days trimming endless stretches of grass. As much as he longed to slack off, he sighed, grabbed his sickle, and set to work. Chapter 37. While Owen toiled under the greenhouse's glass roof, carefully tending rows of sprouting seedlings, something stirred above Wutong Town. A swirl of pink energy cut through the sky, and a sleek, humanoid silhouette descended. The powerful psychic aura was unmistakable. Landing softly on the dirt road, the stranger surveyed the town with cold amusement. Ordinary lives, so predictable, the figure mused, lips curling in a half-smile. "First stop, where you all live. If I don't get the answers I want, I'll demolish every last building." With that threat lingering in the air, the stranger's form rippled. In a heartbeat, a towering Mewtwo became a lithe teenager in a bubblegum pink t-shirt, denim shorts, and a backpack slung over one shoulder. 6 Pokeballs clinked at his belt. Satisfied that no one had noticed his arrival, he strode toward the breeding house on the edge of town. Inside that very breeding house, Owen was just finishing his daily upload. He skimmed over the final cut of today's Douyin video, a lively montage of his latest energy cube sale, set against sweeping shots of his plantation. He'd even captured Greenvine Snake untangling vines, Melodic's graceful glide through a misty pond, and Sandshrew tunneling through soft soil. "All right, that's a wrap," Owen announced to the quiet room, then tapped the post button. 5-second favor, like and follow, please. First 1,000 followers get a chance to win one of 10 mystery gifts. Good luck. He slumped back in his chair with a satisfied grin, not yet aware that, just beyond the door, a pink-clad stranger watched the monitors, his own expression unreadable. Chapter 5, A Surprise Challenge. Owen paused beneath the towering pine, squinting at the Pidgeot perched among its needles. He'd captured it only that morning, yet already its keen gaze surveyed the grounds with calm authority. Satisfied, he turned back toward the breeding house just as the late afternoon light turned golden, already past 4 o'clock. He sighed. Between managing the plantation's daily upkeep and restocking the sales shop, there was hardly time to breathe. Owen dragged his hand through his hair. Maybe it was time to hire an assistant. A capable clerk could oversee inventory and customer orders, freeing him to focus on training and research. Yes, that would ease his mind. He was lost in thought when a sudden uproar drifted through the front door. Owen frowned and set down his crate of feed. The noise grew, a mixture of shouted commands and Pokémon cries, so he pushed the door open to see what was happening. On the bluestone pathway stood 2 trainers locked in combat. On one side, Chinshu's Squirtle planted its feet firmly, water swirling around its shell in preparation for a hydro pump. Opposite them was a boy in a bright pink t-shirt, an unremarkable sight except for the colossal dinosaur looming behind him. A Tyrannosaurus. Owen's jaw dropped. He blinked, then blinked again. No trick of the light, no illusion. That massive reptilian silhouette was unmistakable. Heart-pounding, he tapped his belt-mounted lens of exploration. Instantly, 2 data panels sprang into view before his eyes. Trainer profile, Kai Zhang, age 15, region unknown. Pokémon entry, Tyrannosaurus, level 42, type Rock Dragon. Owen swallowed hard. A level 42 Tyrannosaurus? Rock Dragon type? He felt his pulse quicken. Quinshu's Squirtle was no pushover, but against a prehistoric behemoth the odds looked grim. He took a cautious step forward. "Chinshu, mind if I?" She glanced up, surprised but relieved to see him. "Owen, just in time. I didn't expect to run into Kai here." Kai's Tyrannosaurus let out a low rumble, steam puffing from its nostrils. The boy grinned and adjusted his cap. "Hope you don't mind me crashing your little training session." Owen squared his shoulders. "We were finishing up, but clearly something else is brewing." He met Chinshu's eye and gave a reassuring nod. Together, they would handle this challenge, whatever prehistoric power lay ahead. Chapter X Tyranitar. Gender, male, characteristic, overconfidence, classification red, IV's HP 24, attack 29, SPAC 26, defense 25, speed F 24, speed 27. Approximate levels 67 to 69. Moves, Feather Roost, Dragon Breath, Dragon Tail, Wing Attack, Destruction Beam, Flame Jet, Self-Sacrifice Charge Mewtwo. Gender, genderless, characteristic, classification God, IV's HP 28, attack 31, defense 28, FF 29, speed 31, level 99, moves, immobilization, telekinesis, high-speed star, primal power, life drop. Owen stared at the message glowing on his Pokégear and blinked in surprise. "You're here already?" he murmured. He hadn't expected Mewtwo to arrive so soon. Pocketing the device, he squared his shoulders, bracing himself for whatever came next. A short distance down the polished bluestone path, Squirtle stood facing Tyranitar. The huge rock-dark Pokemon's head alone was twice the size of Squirtle's entire body. The little turtle gulped and shot a pleading look up at its trainer, Chinshu, as if to say, "Against that? Do I even stand a chance?" Chinshu met Squirtle's anxious eyes and sighed. "All right," the trainer said quietly. "If you can't do it, I guess we'll have to forfeit." Squirtle's shell trembled, but a spark of determination still flickered in its eyes. The challenge was set. Owen studied the boy standing across from him. He looked barely older than a kid, eager, a little fierce, but not foolish enough to believe his newly trained Squirtle could take on Owen's Tyranitar. Still, as a courtesy to new trainers, Owen activated the official invitation battle system on his Pokénav and sent the boy a challenge. A moment later, the two sides agreed to the terms, a wager between $100 and $1,000. Win, and you take the pot. Lose, and you pay up. Perfect for rookies wanting a little practice and a little thrill. The raspy buzz of Mewtwo's communicator cut through the chirping of the nearby wild Pokémon. Huh? Mewtwo murmured, brow furrowing. The digital notice had promised a proper match, one side's Pokémon versus the other, until there was a clear victor. Yet here the boy stood, arms folded, head bowed in concession. Owen shook his head in sympathy. I told you, right? If you know it's hopeless, you might as well do something worthwhile instead of grinding your gears. Battling me? Completely pointless. With that, Owen withdrew a crisp $100 bill from his jacket pocket and handed it over. The boy's eyes widened in surprise, then flicked toward Owen in muffled gratitude as he pocketed the money. Squirtle's Pokeball hovered in midair. Owen tapped it once and tucked it away. Mewtwo, already half out of his Pokeball, traded a glance with Owen, then accepted the banknote with a hesitant nod. Hey, Owen, Mewtwo said, counting the bills with 3 fingers. There are tons of people in town today. Shouldn't we be putting on a real show? Are they here to see you? Did they come from the breeding house? Even though she just lost 100 yuan, Chinshu spun around, a playful grin lighting her face as she strode toward him. Tsk. You challenge someone and don't even look them in the eye? You're about to hit an immovable object, aren't you? Owen laughed softly, shaking his head. Then his attention snapped skyward. A Dragonite drifted through the clouds, its wings the color of fresh blood, its expression fierce beneath cold, unyielding eyes. His pulse quickened. This was the kind of raw power that defined champions in this world, power Owen intended to master. One day, he'd elevate his green ivy snake to the same heights. No, he'd surpass even that. He stepped forward instinctively, positioning himself between Chinshu and any approaching threat. But before he could call his partner back, a streak of emerald shot past his leg. His green ivy snake, ever eager, had slipped free of its Pokeball. Above them, Mewtwo, having returned to full awareness, recalled Dragonite with a faint shimmer of psychic energy. It regarded Thed, a teenager before it, noting the boy who had opened its summoning envelope and replied without fear. Intrigued, Mewtwo floated down until it hovered just in front of Owen. Hello, it said, its voice smooth and detached. Owen returned the greeting with calm confidence. Hello, how can I help you? Mewtwo studied him for a long moment. Just Mewtwo. Then, with a barely perceptible nod, it waited for an answer. Owen held back from attacking. Mewtwo wasn't here to fight, but to test him, and that realization put him at ease. Mewtwo spoke directly. I'm the trainer of the messenger Dragonite. Your proposal yesterday caught my attention, so I've come to see what this ordinary life you described actually looks like. Owen pretended to be surprised. You came so soon? He paused, choosing his words carefully. As you've probably noticed, there aren't any inns or vacant homes in this town. Still, I'm looking to hire 2 people right away, one to gather supplies and another to run the cash register. I'll cover room and board, and I'm offering a monthly salary of 10,000. How does that sound? He'd originally planned to mention 5 types of insurance and a housing fund, but Mewtwo is, after all, a Pokémon. Legalese would only confuse it and risk offending him. Better to keep things straightforward. At that moment, a young man from the crowd stepped forward, eyes bright with nervous excitement. Mr. Owen, I can do this job. Chapter 38. You. Chinshu hesitated under Owen's steady gaze. Can I put you to work? Owen asked, folding his arms. He'd been short-handed lately and needed every pair of hands he could get. Chinshu squared her shoulders. She'd been looking for a chance to prove herself. If you need help, I'm available. Owen nodded. All right, you'll be our cashier. Your shift starts at 6 in the morning. Once you've sold through the day's stock, you can clock out, no later than 4 in the afternoon. We'll provide your meals, but I'm afraid there's no room to house you overnight. He glanced at Xiaomeng. He'll take his parents' room. Got it. Thanks, Owen. Chinshu's face lit up as relief and excitement washed over her. Xiaomeng tilted his head. So this is what ordinary life looks like. How would you know if you don't try? Owen answered with a half-smile. Xiaomeng chuckled softly. Even with all his power, he realized destroying this place would accomplish nothing. All right then, Brother Owen, I'll head back now. Chow Meng gave a brief nod and turned toward the house. Qin Shu, elated by her new role, completely forgot the question she'd been about to ask. With a delighted squeal, she dashed after him toward the dwelling. "Wait," Owen called, tossing her a small metal key. "Don't forget, be here at 6 sharp tomorrow morning." "Got it." Qin Shu caught the key, her face lighting up. In the warm glow of the setting sun, she hurried off along the dusty road, humming a merry tune. Once she'd gone, Owen turned to Chow Meng, who had been watching quietly beside him. "Come on in," he said, ushering him inside the simple wooden shack they used as an office. Chow Meng stepped forward and waited. Owen flipped open a weathered ledger and inclined his head. "Just your name and address, please." "Name's Mewtwo," the newcomer replied without hesitation. "I'm from New Island in Kanto." Owen scribbled this down. He barely blinked at the name. He'd heard Mewtwo was a king-ranked trainer, one of the highest titles in the Donghua Alliance. But he treated every new hire the same way, whether novice or legend. "Thanks, now come with me." He led Mewtwo outside to the sprawling fields, where rows of lush tomato plants swayed in the evening breeze. Some fruits were still green, but others glowed a deep, spicy red. "These are your first assignment," Owen explained, gesturing to the ripe tomatoes. "Every day, you'll pick anything that's fully ripe and deposit it into the farm ball. It keeps produce fresh and tracks our harvest. Any questions?" Mewtwo shook his head. Owen nodded once and turned back to the fields. As the sun dipped below the horizon, they got to work under the rising stars. Owen studied the rows of ripening spicy tomatoes and called out, "On most days, I'll need your help planting, and when they're ready, harvesting all these crops." Mewtwo lifted an eyebrow, and for a moment the air around his hands shimmered. In a silent flurry of psychic power, every plump red tomato floated free of its vine and hovered in neat rows. "Like this?" he asked, his voice calm. Owen's jaw dropped. He recovered quickly, though, and smiled. "Perfect. I knew a psychic Pokémon would be the trick. Ordinary psychics usually squash tomatoes instead of carefully plucking them. I'll double your wage for the extra finesse." Mewtwo merely tilted his head. Money meant little to a legendary being. What surprised him was how, barely 10 minutes after arriving in this town, his normally volatile mind felt inexplicably at peace. What strange effect did this place have? Glancing at the setting sun, Owen clapped his hands. "All right, it's getting late. I'll get your room ready soon. First, dinner's almost on the table." He motioned, and overhead a Pidgeot swooped down in a graceful arc, landing on the barn's broad wooden railing. It was Owen's newest partner, another Pokémon who, like Mewtwo, could come inside and share a meal of energy cubes. "Come on in," Owen called. "Let's eat together." As the two Pokémon followed him indoors, Owen couldn't help but feel optimistic. With a psychic powerhouse like Mewtwo and a loyal Pidgeot by his side, his farming venture was off to a promising start. Owen lifted a cube of energy food from his tray and studied it for a moment. Eating alone always felt like admitting to loneliness. "Pidgeot?" he called softly, holding out the cube. In an instant, Pidgeot swooped down, her talons clicking lightly against Owen's palm as she snatched the cube. The claws were sharp but not painful, more intriguing than anything he'd ever felt. "Good girl," he murmured, stroking the top of her head. Once Pidgeot had finished, Owen poured a few more energy cubes into a bowl of water for Melodic. The elegant serpent drank eagerly, then drifted back to her resting pool. Owen scooped up his snake Pokémon, whom he'd nicknamed Ivy, and headed toward the breeding house. Mewtwo hovered uncertainly behind him before deciding to follow. Inside the breeding house, Ivy coiled gracefully on a chair, waiting patiently for her meal. Pidgeot, unused to enclosed spaces, fluttered anxiously along the walls, her wings brushing against the ceiling. Noticing her distress, Ivy extended 2 vine-like whips and tugged open the curtains at the French windows. The golden glow of sunset flooded the room, transforming it. Instantly, Pidgeot relaxed, folding her wings and smoothing her feathers as she basked in the warm light. She turned to Ivy and gave a soft, grateful cry. Mewtwo hovered off to the side, watching the scene with a calm detachment, and yet, deep inside, something new and unexpected was stirring in its heart. Owen didn't notice Mewtwo slip into the kitchen until the rhythmic thunk-thunk-thunk of his cleaver on the cutting board alerted him. Inside, Owen was in full chef mode, slicing a thick steak into perfect cubes. He'd picked up the meat at the Want supermarket yesterday. After all, no matter how good the homegrown veggies were, a dish just isn't complete without some quality protein. Thankfully, his god-level breeder training came with a side of master chef skills. First, Owen trimmed away any excess fat, then tossed the pieces in a light flour slurry. He patted them dry with paper towels and methodically cut them into bite-sized chunks. With prep done, he heated a glug of rapeseed oil over low heat until the surface rippled, about 5 or 6 on his internal scale, then gently laid the steak cubes in to sizzle and brown slowly. While the steak crisped in the pan, Owen grabbed a second pot. He peeled and chopped a large daikon radish, then portioned the pork ribs into even segments. In went the radish and ribs, along with slices of fresh ginger and a handful of seasonings, before he poured in enough water to just cover the bones. "How's your power control these days?" he asked, wiping his hands on a towel. Mewtwo blinked, then inclined his head. "Very good." "Great," Owen said, stepping back. "Come help me manage the heat." Mewtwo's ears flicked, puzzled. Owen simply reached over and turned on the second burner himself, giving his psychic companion an amused smile. "I appreciate the offer, but I've got it," he teased, adjusting the flame beneath the stew. Mewtwo floated closer, still eyeing the stove curiously, while the kitchen filled with the rich aroma of searing steak and simmering broth. Proof that, with or without supernatural assistance, Owen's cooking was nothing short of divine. Owen let out a quiet sigh of satisfaction as he watched the last flickers of flame die down under the sizzling steak. Across the room, Mewtwo had boosted the heat with its psychic powers, just enough to sear the meat evenly without scorching it. Now the steak was perfectly medium rare, its juices locked in and its surface tinged with a delicate crust. Owen sprinkled a pinch of sea salt, scattered a few fresh rosemary needles, and transferred the steak onto a warm plate. On the side, he'd whipped up a simple, spicy tomato dipping sauce. Diced plum tomatoes simmered with chili flakes, garlic, and a touch of olive oil until they melded into a tangy puree. He turned back to the stove. A bubbling casserole pot held the final course, a hearty steak soup. Owen ladled the steaming broth into bowls. Tender strips of beef mingled with root vegetables, and the rich, savory aroma rose like a comfort blanket around them. Steak and steak soup were both classified as B-level delicacies in the world of Pokémon, each dish carrying a small but meaningful power boost. After a few bites of the steak, anyone, human or Pokémon, would take 10% less damage from ice-type attacks for a short while. And a cup of the hot soup would calm the nerves, easing stress and sharpening focus. Owen set the dishes on the low table in their private training room and called out, "All right, it's ready." Mewtwo released its psychic hold on the stovetop and floated over, nostrils flaring. The air was thick with the smell of rosemary, seared beef, and simmered broth. It felt as though every fiber of its being had been pulled in by that irresistible scent. But even as Mewtwo's senses swam in waves of flavor, it felt a gentle, stabilizing tug, a faint green aura linking back to Owen. That was the subtle after-effect of Owen's cooking method, designed to steady emotions and sharpen resolve. In battle, that extra calm would prove just as valuable as any elemental resistance. Mewtwo blinked, refocusing its mind. The world felt brighter, more centered. Striding forward, it settled beside Owen and lowered its head in a silent show of gratitude. "Dig in," Owen said with a warm grin. "We've got work to do tomorrow, and you'll need all your strength." Chapter 39. Owen surveyed the feast spread out before him, steam rising from platters piled high with grilled meat, sautéed vegetables, and fragrant rice. Beside him, Chow Meng licked his lips, eyes wide with anticipation. "All right, dig in," Owen said, placing energy cubes in front of Qingtang, the snake, and Pidgeot. He then opened the refrigerator, pulled out a tall bottle of peach iced tea he'd prepared earlier, and poured generous cups for himself, Qingtang, and Chow Meng. Freshly squeezed peach juice brightened with a splash of lemon. Its rich, fruity aroma and invigorating chill make it the perfect summer refresher. Drinking it grants a moderate boost to pleasure. Qingtang wasted no time, tucking into the dishes and pausing only to savor a cool sip of peach tea. Pidgeot hovered hesitantly at first, but the irresistible aromas soon won him over. He landed beside the others and pecked happily at the food. Mewtwo watched in silence for a moment before Owen gestured to the empty seat across the table. With a quiet grace, Mewtwo sat down, picked up a pair of chopsticks to mimic Owen's technique, and began sampling the meat. In that simple, convivial moment, Owen and his companions relished not just a sumptuous meal, but the warmth of shared company and the promise of more adventures to come. System notice. Congratulations. You've increased Mewtwo's happiness from 10% to 30%. Rewards granted. 1 bag of special-grade gin Kella and a bent soup spoon. Owen absently lifted the glass of peach juice to his lips and took a sip. That evening, after washing all the dishes, he laid out a makeshift bed for Mewtwo and spent the rest of the night forging energy cubes. Before dawn the next morning, a small crowd had already gathered outside Owen's door. He carried the freshly made energy cubes out and arranged them on the counter, preparing for the day's trade. Mewtwo stirred, its eyes flickering open. With a subtle gesture, it summoned every cube into the air, holding them in perfect suspension. The creature regarded Owen calmly, as if to say, "Watch this." "Your precision is incredible," Owen praised, stepping back. "You can control every cube with absolute accuracy." Mewtwo simply nodded, and with a graceful wave of its hand, directed each floating cube into its exact spot. What would normally take Owen and his companion, Tang Snake, at least 30 minutes, was done in 10 seconds. Owen surveyed the stack, twice yesterday's yield, and allowed himself a satisfied smile. With this haul, his little cultivation house would easily get through another day. Owen blinked in surprise as the front doors of the cultivation house swung open once more. Chin-Shu, brimming with energy, darted outside and called out, "Make way, please. Line up in an orderly fashion. Don't push. Why are there so many people already?" As the last doors folded back, Owen's jaw dropped. Convention said that interest peaks on opening day, then slowly fades, but this was day 2, and the crowd was twice as large as yesterday's. The sidewalk was packed with familiar faces, customers who'd stayed late into the night just to be first in line the day before. Despite the heavy summer heat, these diehards had arrived before dawn. Owen ran a hand through his hair and let out a low whistle. He hadn't imagined demand would surge a second day in a row. "Hey everyone, check this out." Luan Ming's voice rang out above the chatter. The streamer from yesterday's broadcast stood at the front of the line, selfie stick in hand, already live to his followers. "This is the place that got me up at 4:30 a.m. You've got to see what they're offering inside." Owen steadied himself against the doorframe. The buzz around the cultivation house was far louder than he'd ever anticipated, and if today was any indication, it was only going to get more intense. Owen barely managed to catch his breath before he barked, "Boss, 3 physical energy cubes, please." "Right away," Chin-Shu said, lifting a clean plastic bag from the counter and eyeing the neatly arranged cubes behind the glass. She moved to drop 3 into the bag, but Owen held up a hand. "Wait," he said, nodding toward the small scale and cash drawer by the shop's entrance. "This is your station. You need to weigh each customer's order, record how many cubes they buy, and collect the payment." Chin-Shu blinked in surprise. "Oh, okay?" Owen offered an encouraging smile. Most of today's customers had shown up after watching Owen's viral baby cup video. They all knew he owned the breeding house next door. At his prompt, everyone in line sprang into action, scooping cubes into bags with remarkable speed. After all, the faster you worked, the quicker you cashed in. Chin-Shu bit her lip as coins and credits piled up in the till. It felt like holding something hot, powerful, and exhilarating. Then she glanced at the lengthening queue, noted the thousands of credits each customer was handing over, and her head spun. Thousands of credits at a time. So much money. Owen watched, stunned, as customers at the tiny corner market paid over 30 yuan per pound for fruits and vegetables. He blinked, incredulous. Is money really that easy to make? He wondered. He knew the truth all too well. In Wutong Town, money didn't grow on trees. Even though a stretch of wilderness had recently opened up nearby, few Pokémon trainers dared to explore it. The town lacked a Pokémon center, and with the nearest city a half-hour's drive away, travelers rarely stopped by. Most of the adults had left to find work elsewhere, and once the local children earned their spots at Pokémon University, they seldom came home. He still remembered how things used to be when he was a boy. back when his Uncle Lin and Aunt Ye still lived here. Uncle Lin's energy blocks were famed throughout the region. Trainers from the city came every day to stock up. Meanwhile, Owen's mother ran a modest Pokémon rescue station, nursing wounded trainers and their Pokémon back to health. Life was hard, but it was honest, and it felt alive. Then, Uncle Lin and Aunt Ye vanished without a trace. With them went the town's quiet prosperity and the little spark of hope that had kept Wutong Town alive. Now Owen stood in the fading afternoon light, wondering if those brighter days would ever return. Owen surveyed the sleepy town with a heavy heart. Once, its streets would have thronged with traders and travelers. Now the signboards were faded, the storefronts shuttered. It wasn't that people didn't like this place. They simply found it too barren, too lacking in promise. Qin Shu, kneeling beside a row of newly sprouted watermelon vines, met his gaze and dared to hope. Could Owen really breathe life back into this forgotten corner of the world? He offered her a reassuring nod, then rose to his feet. At his shoulder floated Mewtwo, its violet eyes gleaming with curiosity. "Want to see some real progress?" Owen asked, leading the way through their makeshift plantation. Already the watermelon tendrils had stretched nearly a meter beyond the seed hole, heavy with vitality. At this rate, ripe fruit would be hanging from the vines in 5 or 6 days, far sooner than either of them dared expect. Across the field, grass that had been clipped to stubble just yesterday now swayed waist-high, ready for grazing. The land itself seemed eager to cooperate. Owen let his mind wander over possibilities. He could bring in a few more tauros to bolster the dairy herd, maybe even raise goats for fresh milk. His reputation as a god-tier breeder would ensure record yields. All he needed was the right connections, perhaps a visit to Huaqiao village to secure quality livestock, and a bit more elbow grease to expand the ranch houses. Before long, this place wouldn't just survive, it would thrive. "Is this what you'd call an ordinary life?" he mused aloud. Mewtwo drifted closer, its voice light with amusement. "That's only the beginning, Owen. Farming and breeding are just one piece of the puzzle. You still have adventures ahead, challenges no one's faced before." Owen glanced toward a tall pine at the farm's edge. Here Pidgeot stood watch, ruffling its feathers against the evening breeze. The setting sun turned fields of emerald green into waves of molten gold. He inhaled deeply, savoring the scent of soil and promise. He turned back to Qin Shu, who was already gathering tools with a determined smile. "Then let's make every bit of it count," he said, and together they walked toward the horizon, ready to rebuild a future from the ground up. He turned to Mewtwo and asked, "Want to go for a walk? Let's see what ordinary people are up to at this hour." Chapter 40. A narrow bluestone path wound through the rice paddies, where farmers bent over the ripening stalks, some pulling weeds by hand, others sprinkling Pokémon powder to ward off pests. It was mid-July, the season of earing, and the grain heads hung heavy with promise, a vivid green glow under the rising sun. Morning light crept across the distant hills, spilling down onto the trail where Owen strode briskly, Mewtwo silently at his heels. Mewtwo said nothing, its graceful form drifting just above the stones as it followed. Owen, on the other hand, greeted every worker he passed, offering waves and cheerful nods. "Morning, Owen. Up bright and early again, I see. Word is you put on quite a display at the training studio last night. Drew a whole crowd. You're just like your father." "Who's that young fellow trailing behind you? He's got a delicate sort of look to him." Owen smiled and waved back, then continued until the path opened onto a shallow irrigation channel. There, an elderly man, Grandpa Quinn, was bent double, shoveling mud from the water as it lapped coolly around his ankles. Even in the heat of July, the dawn chills made the river sting skin. Perched atop his shoulder, a little mountain rat watched Owen with wide, nervous eyes. "Grandpa Quinn," Owen called softly, setting down his satchel and stepping onto the channel's grassy bank. Owen hurried over, puzzled by the sight of Grandpa Chin crouched beside the irrigation channel. "Grandpa, what are you doing?" Looking up, Grandpa Chin wiped the sweat from his brow and offered a kind smile. "Ah, it's you, Owen. I heard your new assistant started working at your breeding shop, and that you're paying her a small fortune. That won't do. Your shop's only been open a short time. Now's when you need to be making money. She's just a young girl. There's no reason to overpay her." A modest wage will do just fine. Owen inclined his head. Understood. I'll keep her salary reasonable, and if she doesn't pull her weight, I'll adjust it accordingly. Grandpa Chin sighed, glancing across the parched fields. These past few days without rain have really dropped the water level. The rice is heading, and though the main channels still carry water, our vegetables are crying out for a little extra irrigation. Before Owen could reply, his little mole, part of his breeding collection, wriggled impatiently on the edge of the bank. It longed to burrow in and loosen the soil for Grandpa Chin, but the swift current and its tiny size made the task impossible. Grandpa Chin chuckled and waved the creature away. All right, go on ahead. I'll be done here in a moment. Obediently, the mole scurried off in search of drier ground, while Owen and Grandpa Chin turned their attention back to the thirsty crops. Owen peered into the shallow channel. Compared to just a week ago, the water level had fallen alarmingly, and that was bad news. This little river supplies every farm in town with irrigation, and even the wild Pokémon beyond the reserve come here to drink. If it dries up, the consequences will be serious. Owen couldn't help but think of Melodic. Could its rain dance reach far enough to bring down the rainfall they desperately needed? He made a mental note to test it as soon as possible. No sooner had Owen arrived than his grandfather, Grandpa Chin, climbed out of the trench, Sandshrew padding happily at his side. So this is what the bond between humans and Pokémon looks like? Mewtwo asked quietly from where it hovered. Owen smiled and nodded. Exactly. Sandshrew loves Grandpa Chin as much as he loves it. They look out for each other, friends in every sense of the word. Mewtwo fell silent, its eyes fixed on Owen. For the first time, the Pokémon felt a deep, unsettling confusion stirring in its mind as it tried to understand the strength of that human-Pokémon connection. It was as if the word love were entirely foreign to him. Owen met Mewtwo's blank stare, and after a moment asked quietly, "Don't you ever worry about or care for your Pokémon?" Mewtwo's lips parted. "Where would I get Pokémon?" He broke off mid-sentence, as though startled by his own question. Silence stretched between them, broken only when Mewtwo finally spoke again, voice low and hesitant. "Do the trainers who use Pokémon to battle ever love them?" Owen tilted his head, surprised by the question. "Use Pokémon in battle?" he repeated, then sighed. "Come with me." He turned and led Mewtwo back toward the breeding house, passing through familiar corridors until they emerged into the bright daylight outside. A tall pine stood sentinel at the edge of the plantation, and perched high in its branches was a majestic Pidgeot. Owen held up a hand to catch its attention. "I caught this Pidgeot just yesterday," he explained. "It told me that a Spearow had evolved into a Fearow and driven it from its own territory. I promised I'd help it grow stronger, help it reclaim its home. Would that count as using Pokémon to battle?" At that moment, the afternoon sun gleamed through the pine needles, and the Pidgeot spread its wings, descending in a lazy arc. It landed with graceful confidence on Owen's shoulder. The creature's usual sharp gaze softened as it ruffled its feathers against him. Owen brushed a hand along Pidgeot's neck and looked up at Mewtwo. "Does that look like a Pokémon I'm controlling in battle, or one I care about?" Silence answered him, but in that quiet, even a legendary Pokémon could learn something about love. Owen smiled at Mewtwo's awed expression. "I take it yesterday's feast was to your liking?" Mewtwo blinked, still recovering from Owen's hospitality. Before he could find the right words, a commotion erupted outside the breeding shop. Shouts and the crackle of energy drew their attention. Through the window, they spotted two trainers pitted against each other, their Pokémon locked in a fierce struggle amid a growing crowd. Mewtwo frowned. "Is this battle really just for human amusement? Watching creatures tear each other apart for sport?" Owen chuckled softly. "That's one way to look at it. But for Pokémon, it isn't merely about pleasing an audience. It's about power." He turned to Mewtwo, meeting his gaze. "All Pokémon are born with an instinct to grow stronger. Most have simple, straightforward natures. If no one guides that instinct, what do you think happens?" Mewtwo hesitated, thinking back on the raw energy crackling through the battlefield. "They unleash it without restraint?" "Exactly." Owen's tone grew serious. "Imagine having a power you couldn't hold back, day after day. In the early days, before advanced elven science, Pokémon conflicts erupted everywhere. Mountains of rivalry and misunderstanding tore communities apart. Even now, some clashes can't be smoothed over. Owen glanced at the Pidgeot perched on his left shoulder and the Spearow on his right. The two ruffled their feathers, ready for action. These two would clash too if I didn't keep their instincts in check. Mewtwo fell silent, watching the distant battle with new understanding. He had never considered the deeper drives that pushed Pokémon to fight. Until now. Owen guided Mewtwo to the edge of the clearing. "Your job is to guide and regulate their power," he whispered. All around them, spectators quietly stepped back, giving plenty of room for the match about to begin. In the Donghua Alliance, new trainers are allowed to battle anywhere at any time, as long as they don't disrupt the daily lives of others. Today's bout pitted a young boy against a young girl. The boy sent out his Halili, the girl countered with her Rocket. With Rocket's type advantage and slightly higher level, her victory was never in doubt. In a few swift exchanges, Rocket proved the stronger and the girl claimed the win. After the battle, Owen knelt beside Mewtwo and murmured, "I'm going to activate my Evergreen Power. It lets you sense the emotions of every living being around us. Read their feelings, see if anyone here is harboring discontent." A soft turquoise glow drifted from Owen's palm into Mewtwo's eyes. In an instant, the powerful psychic Pokémon felt a surge of empathy, the crowd's excitement, relief at a clean match, even the undercurrent of jealousy from a handful of onlookers. For a brief moment, Mewtwo could perceive every hidden emotion in the clearing, just as Owen had intended.